What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
6JJK Chapter 161. Advertisement. Don't bother. The space in front of you can't be closed without my permission. It has nothing to do with your strength. Ryuichi's figure floated slowly in the air, her body shining endlessly in blue.
A pair of moon-white eyes are as cold and ruthless as heaven. Condescendingly looked at the huge cursed spirit that emerged from the stone gate. Haha. A mere human. Dare to speak arrogantly, Jujutsu or something, you don't need it at all. Rumble. He shook his huge fist violently, and the muscles all over his body collapsed tightly together. The power of terror kept exploding in his hands. Null. The four huge fists all rushed to the dragon, one shot.
The fist was swung swiftly with a speed that was extremely inconsistent with his size.
Ryuichi's body submerged. Ryuichi is like a lone boat in the rain, and can only be bumped away in the huge waves that are constantly surging. But the cursed spirit's eyes did not have the slightest joy, but a bit of deep dignity.
Because he saw it, under the shadow of her airtight fist, Ryuichi flew up and down like a butterfly, no matter how fast she was.
But he was still unable to contaminate a trace of him, even the corners of his clothes could not be touched by himself. Damn it. Listening to cursed spirit's roar, a look of boredom appeared on Ryuichi's face. Base. He raised his left hand, pinching the Jew with one hand, his breath instantly became dignified. Numerous mysterious formations rose up all around. Dang dang. An invisible barrier instantly appeared in front of the monster's fist. Rumble. The cursed spirit's power all leans on the barrier, that is, even if the cursed spirit pays attention to the terrifying force that destroys the mountains and rocks, it still cannot shake the barrier. Human. You passed the level. Cursed spirit saw that his attack hadn't landed on the spot, and the four big hands slowly dropped. Did the body move slightly to make way for Ryuichi? Ryuichi glanced at the cursed spirit meaningfully. The figure floated slowly in the air, unhurriedly advancing towards the edge of the shattered stone gate. At the moment when the monster passed by, a very strange expression appeared on the monster's face. Advertisement. More than a dozen pairs of eyes burst out at the same time. Humans. No matter how long it takes, they are still so naive. An incomparably bright red light shot out of his eyes in an instant. With the ultimate power of destruction, he shot Ryuichi fiercely. Ryuichi's figure was instantly enveloped by the light. Was completely overwhelmed by that power. Endless silence fell instantly. Ha 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 ha. Melt in front of Lord Shachuo. You smart guys like you. I think there are too many. As long as you make a little jujutsu show action, you guys will think that it is my art. Human, rubbish. Ha 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 ha. While he laughed wildly, he kept shooting endless death light from his eyes, constantly bombarding Ryuichi's body. Huh, is that so? Suddenly, the annoying voice sounded again, and his blood seemed to be solidified. Unbelievably looking at the figure in front of him, that was shrouded in his own death. I don't know when. It turned into a huge rock. At this moment, the rock has turned into a burst of gravel, and it keeps falling. Guru. His whole body was stiff, a sense of fear that hadn't been seen since birth grew in his heart, and he couldn't help swallowing and spitting. Ryuichi floated cross-legged in the air. Like a lazy Taoist priest, his eyes were slightly narrowed, and he looked at the cursed spirit who called himself Sha Tuo in front of him, showing a smile that was not a smile. When? Ah, such a stupid question, indeed fits your stupid image. Ryuichi said leisurely. Click. Then he snapped a crisp finger, and everything around him seemed to be suspended at this moment. The dust stopped falling, the air stopped circulating, the curse power stopped spreading, everything seemed to have stopped. Your proportion is too small. Ryuichi slowly stood up from midair. Looking at Sha Tuo who seemed to be frozen, he fell casually on his shoulders. Everything in this world is constantly changing, and the value of life is constantly passing by, and your existence in this world is so insignificant that everything about you is worthless in front of me. Base. The odd game shines instantly. Advertisement. The air, curse of power, and dust began to animate again. Seeking flowers, Shimon quickly turned between the waves of Ryuichi's palm. And Sha Tuo's body was constantly twisting. Qianzi 3000 worlds. Boom. The space suddenly shattered. In the next moment, everything around it was like a mirror about to completely collapse, and countless fragments continued to spread. The fragments began to appear frequently on Sha Tuo, as if everything in this space was in a mirror, and as the mirror shattered, everything would eventually shatter. Wow. Bang bang bang. Sha Tuo's body continued to wither along with the fragmentation of space. And what appeared at the same time was a scene that was generally the same as the space just now. It's just that Sha Tuo at this moment has fallen to the ground like pieces of minced meat. ... Ryuichi didn't even look at the rotten flesh that fell on the ground. Therefore, he recklessly combined Sha Tuo's consciousness with that illusory space, at the moment of detonation. In fact, everything is false, and it is his own fear that killed Sha Tuo. Only minced meat all over the floor was left. Continue to walk toward the depths of the gate. If you knew that this is how you get the price of eternal life, how would you choose? Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Afterwards, the scattered pieces of meat gathered together quickly, and shimon quickly recovered to its original appearance. Sha Tuo's once again hid in the shimon, but at this moment he was like an unconscious empty shell. Generally, there is no rest. The moment when Ryuichi started the odd game, said softly, "What if there is no such thing in this world?" At the moment he was about to fall into the door, he turned his head, with a look in his eyes that said he would not be pity or sarcasm. Among the pieces of meat, there seemed to be something hidden, curled up into a ball, like a sleeping human being, with blood constantly oozing out of his body. Then in a burst of blue, Ryuichi's figure disappeared in front of the stone gate. Chapter 162 Advertisement: The Other Side of Curse Island. The thin child behind Gojo Satoru clutched the corner of his clothes tightly. Gojo was patient, wiped the kid's head, and walked in a forest unhurriedly. His steps were very light, and there was no sound. If you look closely, you will find that in fact, every step of Gojo Satoru does not fall on the ground. It was as if stepping in the void dragged his footsteps by a certain force. "Brother, why do you keep putting infinity under your feet? Is it a child called a burial?" Looking up at Gojo Satoru, he asked with a puzzled face. Gojo Satoru put a smile on his face, stroked his brother's little head and said, "Brother, I used to think this world was too boring. No matter what I want to do or what I want, it seems that as long as I stretch out my hand, everything in this world will be like fruit on a tree. Let me pick it." Days like this sounds pretty good, but after a long time, some are just dull and boring and repeating the days over and over again. It's like you can eat whatever you want, but will you get tired of eating no matter how delicious it is? The funeral raised a hand like answering a question in class, and said in an innocent childlike voice. Hearing the funeral, Gojo Satoru smiled casually. "Is it right, but what does this have to do with your wasting curse power like this, brother?" Funeral clearly remembers that the teacher once said that the curse is very precious. Once the Jujutsu master runs out of the curse, it is like losing his life. I want to keep exercising, because my brother has found someone who can stand on a platform with me and pick apples at will. Talking. A light flashed in Gojo Satoru's eyes, and Zenin Ryuichi's figure became clearer before his eyes. "Is that the brother with you? But aren't you friends?" "It's a friend, but it's also..." Gojo Satoru's voice paused, and his left hand seemed to be raised unintentionally. Rumble. The next moment, a tyrannical impact burst out along his palm in an instant. The tyrannical force seems to be able to crush everything, and the forest is all turned into fly ash under that force. A huge crack of about 7 meters tore the entire ground apart. It was neat and tidy like a cake noodle that had been cut by a steel knife. Gia Gia Gia. Human beings now really don't understand the rules, don't you want, door, anymore? Advertisement: Dare to attack the great Uncle Bath. Excessive. Excessive. A half-male voice came from the forest. Gojo Satoru looked at the depths of the forest, his blue eyes seemed to peep through everything. Whenever, cursed spirit dared to walk out like this. Boy. Who is the cursed spirit? I am the noble gatekeeper. Pouch. Suddenly a small shadow jumped down from the tree. It was a golden toad. His head is a human head covered with gold dust. The body is a fat toad. Gatekeeper, sorry, if it wasn't for your quick remarks, maybe, I have already been killed by me now. Gojo Satoru will be buried behind him and hid. It seemed that he didn't want his younger generation to see such a disgusting monster. I've seen too many human beings who talk big, but as long as you give the meeting present, Master Bus can let you pass. When Gojo Satoru heard this, there was a little interest in his eyes, and he said condescendingly at the cursed spirit at his feet. You can tell me what the meeting ceremony is, and see if I have it again. This kid. As he spoke, Bass looked at the burial behind Gojo Satoru, the unstoppable water flowing out of his mouth, and his saliva dripped on the ground, corroding the ground. His words are not finished yet. I just feel a flower in front of me. The tall white-haired man disappeared in front of him. Then, a sense of crisis from biological instinct appeared on him. Goo, I'm kidding, Buzz yelled quickly as if he had sensed some huge threat. Really, that's really not funny. Gojo Satoru's voice gradually became a little gloomy. Hey, Rumble. This time, the power that appeared in his hand exploded instantly, exploding like a Zhao Ryuichi. It bloomed directly against Nabu's body. Rumble. Advertisement click. Bass's body was shattered under the horrible impact. Patter. Click. Click, countless fragments splashed everywhere. Buried tightly holding Gojo Satoru's thigh, he dared not open his eyes to see the bloody scene in front of him. Wow, the fragments that kept falling from the sky did not fall clean for a long time. Endlessness is like a heavy rain of blood. Quack, Uncle Bath is very angry. Crack. Be angry. Angry. The countless body fragments fell on the ground, and there was one little buzz after another, and each body was filled with tyrannical curse power. It's plausible. Ryuichi really didn't lie to me, don't you guys? It's much more fun. Gojo Satoru looked at the weird scene in front of him, took off his sunglasses, and put them on the eyes of Xiao Buen behind him. Hearing those miserable screams, it was like hearing some beautiful music. As he spoke, Gojo Satoru's one hand was raised instantly, and the corner of his mouth was with a bit of unparalleled confidence and arrogance. In the pair of heavenly eyes, reflected in the dense and endless buzz. The lie sitting on the edge of the cliff was that he took out countless miniature figurines from his pockets and threw them away in the hot water like magma. No, this time is different. His body can be repaired, but his consciousness has been completely wiped out. No, 5 numbers are enough. Sha Tuo is dead. Yada squatted in a cave and knocked the cigarette stick in his hand. With 2 fingers close together, he looked at everything around him from left to right, pressed his lips lightly, and said. Hearing this, the teacup in Lai's hand shook slightly, and a few bean-sized little people fell out of the cup, and before they landed, they seemed to be completely torn apart by some force and dissipated feebly. Brother, I am here, buried, it doesn't matter, he will always die, after all. Everything has a price, right? Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Close your eyes and count in dozens. There was a morbid flush on his face, and his body twisted unconsciously. There was a crazy smile in the eyes that were very similar to Gojo Satoru. Almost at the moment when Sha Tuo's consciousness shattered, he had already got the perception. As a cursed spirit born in the fear of suicide, Yada has an extremely keen sense of death. Chapter 163 Advertisement, sure enough, it's a waste? Forget it. Even if the will is quiet, but isn't his body still alive, so that's not a violation of the agreement. However, it's really disappointing. I was expecting it to cause a little trouble for Zenin Ryuichi. I can't even help Zenin Ryuichi. It seems that no matter how many years have passed, rubbish is rubbish. Lai gently poured out the tea in the cup, and countless wailing humans fell out of one, and then quickly disappeared under a certain force. In his pair of azure blue eyes, there was a few traces of extremely hard-to-see anger, and his mood at this moment was not as indifferent as he showed. It doesn't matter, it's just cannon fodder, no matter how much you sacrifice, it's still cannon fodder. There was not the slightest fluctuation in Yada's tone. His muddy eyes, like mud and sand, looked condescendingly at the entire Curse Island from the top of the mountain, as if all the scenes fell into his eyes. Do you really think that kid 23 from Kamo's family will listen to you? Haha, Yada, although you are one of the strongest cursed spirits, when it comes to understanding humans, you are still far behind. Lies, truth, these have no meaning to them. They care about the endless desire. As long as they move their fingers a little, they will be like obedient dogs, wagging their tails to you. Such boring and stupid creatures are everywhere, haha, what a disgusting world. The voice of the lie was cold, but with unspeakable enthusiasm. He got up and walked to Yada's side, looking at the dark cursed island the same, and said in a deep tone. They are all our toys. Kamo Jair, your ancestors let me down once, and hope this time, you won't let me down. Quack quack. Quack quack. Countless crows suddenly jumped out of the lying body, and his figure instantly turned into a sky full of black feathers. Constantly falling in the sky. And Yada looked at the lies that disappeared into the sky. There was a dark and uncertain light in his eyes, as if he was thinking about something. Advertisement, young Master Kamo. What do you mean? You be asterisk 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 D. You dare to cheat me like this, aren't we afraid that we will unite? Even if the Kamo family faces our alliance, I am afraid it will not be so easy. Pieces of black spider webs entangled on the edge of a huge ancient wood. More than a dozen aristocratic children were tightly bound by the black spider web, and the curse power of the whole body was continuously drawn away from the spider web, and the breath began to gradually wilt. Even the tone of the curse was the same, powerless. The young master of the Kamo family, Kamo Jair, was standing in front of them with a smile on his face. Whether these guys curse or pray, he is cold and unmoved. The smile at the corner of his mouth clasped his face like a mask. A-hole. We believe you so much. These dozens of aristocratic children chose Kamo Jair, who believes in the origin of big 3 sorcerer families, and Kamo Jair did not live up to their expectations and took them all the way through the so-called hurdles. Even after several shortcuts, everyone came here almost effortlessly. But just after I got here, being imprisoned by the sky full of black cobwebs, and because they believed Kamo Jair's nonsense too much, these guys voluntarily chose to converge the curse power on Kamo Jair's body to form a connection. This behavior is supposed to be a 2-way revenue system. But right now, it has become a 1-way passage. Everyone's curse power is constantly falling into his body. And even the jujutsu engraved in the body is constantly being erased. Once it is completely erased, these people will become the most despised waste in their eyes. Shush, keep your voice down. Dogs that bark too loudly are undesirable. Kamo Jair put a finger to his mouth, and looked at the most excited teenager in a kind tone, as if he was comforting his pet. I'm Pooh. You be asterisk 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 D. Pung. Wow. The boy hadn't finished speaking, only saw that Kamo Jair's palm was slightly raised, and he squeezed it randomly in the void. In an instant, the boy's head was inflated rapidly like a balloon that was continuously pumped up. In the end, it was like a watermelon that was blown up. White, red, yellow. Splashes are everywhere. Advertisement. A trace of scarlet splashed on the corners of his mouth, Not only did Kamojair not show the slightest disgust, but stuck out his red tongue, swallowing the mixture of brain and blood into his mouth. There was a hint of enjoyment on his face. Seeing such a scene, the rest of the people couldn't help but feel chills all over, the fear in their eyes couldn't be hidden anyway, and their feet couldn't help but waver. Yes, be quiet, be quiet. You guys, shouldn't you feel honored to be able to sacrifice your life for the blood of the great Kamo family? Ha ha ha. Really think that you ants attached to the big three sorcerer families, shreds, are eligible to come up with a piece of the pie? You are just sacrifices for me. Don't be bitter, be happy, right now, your power will merge with the great Kamo. Then I will take yours and kill all Gojo Satoru and Zenin Ryuichi. Tell the world, who is the real genius? Whoops. Those children of the aristocracy who were bound by the spider webs had lost any strength at this moment. His whole body was weakly wrapped in a spider web. Not moving at all. Let Kamojair take all their curse power away. Shocking. The aura on Kamojair's body became deeper and more terrifying, and the blood-red curse power of his whole body burned like a flame. Feeling the powerful force in his body, there was a hint of ecstasy at the corner of his mouth. That's it, ha ha ha. This is power. I can feel that I am invincible at this moment. For this kind of power, even if it is to cooperate with the so-called cursed spirit, there seems to be nothing unacceptable. What's more, no one will know. Gia, it seems that you like my gift very much. If you can catch Zenin Ryuichi, even if it is his power, I can take it. At that time, you are truly invincible. Really, like that. The location of big three sorcerer families is too crowded, Kamojair murmured softly. Chapter 164 Advertisement Useless force under your feet. The figure disappeared instantly, just as he was leaving. The teenagers in the black spider web began to decay, and in the end only a gloomy white bone was left. And just now, there was a trace of withered yellow at the feet where he was standing, and then that little silence, like a plague, quickly rendered everything around him. The withered yellow seemed to pass by with some strange power. Everything began to lose its vitality, it's like an endless destruction. Continued to spread. Sudden, under a blue light, the dead silence stopped quietly, as if encountering some kind of irreversible natural enemy. Zenin Ryuichi looked at the white bones in front of him, and the dead silence that seemed to want to swallow everything. I looked up and down. In the moon-white eyes, there seemed to be countless scenes falling. It's a member of the 100 houses. They died really clean, leaving no traces of them. But, Ryuichi's voice paused, and he held out a finger in the void, and counted. The odd door game unfolded instantly, profound breath rose to the sky. Countless scenes fell before his eyes. Everything that happened just now was repeated before his eyes. A little thought appeared in Ryuichi's eyes. Can you plunder other people's curse power in Jujutsu? This kind of power is a bit scary. He rubbed his chin. That power should come from the cold voice talking to Kamojair. Forget it, wait if you encounter it, if it is troublesome, just. He hasn't finished speaking yet, but the killing intent in his tone has indeed been revealed clearly. Since Kamojair has set the goal on himself, there is no reason to keep him alive. Suppress the distracting thoughts in my heart. Ryuichi continued to walk toward the depths, but just took 2 steps. His fingers suddenly lifted up 2 fingers and moved them together slightly. The curse of the whole body emerges, and the gossip starts again. Dweezy windless. Advertisement buzzing. A breeze rising out of thin air suddenly gathered around Ryuichi into a translucent barrier. The breeze seems to be weak, but in fact it is the force of a miniature storm that rotates through the barrier. Rumble. Click. Null. Just when the barrier was formed. A huge impact seemed to appear above the barrier out of thin air. The powerful force instantly drowned Ryuichi. And Feng Wu is like an eternal heavenly gate, blocking Ryuichi's body tightly. No matter how terrifying the power is, nothing penetrates the seemingly weak barrier. This power appeared extremely strange. Generally speaking, the transformation of curse power into power is like cooking. Based on the curse power, it begins to solidify, and the process of impact is to gather power, just like making a fire. But, this shock indeed omitted the entire process without any props, just like taking rice out of a rice cooker out of thin air. Rumble. The shock lasted for nearly 10 seconds. The opposite side of the surroundings has completely collapsed under that power. The entire ground seemed to be 3 points shorter than before. Under that power, even the ground has become a toy for kneading at will. Haha. You deserve it. Such an attack has no effect on you. Kamojair's voice sounded slowly, standing at the top of a big tree, with a slight smile. Condescendingly looked at the figures that constantly appeared in the aftermath of that power. The man who made him so jealous that his whole body itchy and his ears pierced, wandered out of the smoke. Under such terrifying power, his expression is indeed still so indifferent and detached, like this curse island, but it is the back flower group of his family, and his Kamojair is like a flower picking in from outside, thieves. Regardless of his aura or his tolerance, the appearance of Ryuichi squeezed him down. Kamojair. I seem to have warned you, why don't you listen to it? Ryuichi twisted his wrist. The curse power of the whole body continued to rise, and the Kimen round under his feet quietly unfolded, and the area within 30 meters fell within the Kimen. There was a bit of helplessness in his tone. It seemed that there was a bit of distress on his face, like a teenager who felt a bit distressed because a friend he had clearly admonished, but still insisted on making mistakes. But Kamo Jair knew that this seemingly harmless young man was a monster who almost killed himself with a punch. He looked at Ryuichi's figure, with a flame called jealousy burning in his eyes. Advertisement among the big three sorcerer families, the Kamo family should be the strongest. But in his generation, the Kamo family completely lost their voice. Gojo Satoru of Gojo's family is like a big day, high above, so that all jujutsu teachers dare not see. And Zenin Ryuichi suddenly appeared in Zenyuan home, called the blood moon above the eternal night by everyone, hanging high for 9 days, not falling into the world. But, obviously I am the young Master Kamo. Until now, not many people in the entire jujutsu world know their name. Gojo Satoru, Zenin Ryuichi. These two guys brought all the glory together.
Let him be left behind forever. Even the best in the world, even before the Imperial contest, he didn't even have the qualifications to shoot. He still remembers that day Zenin Ryuichi appeared on the high platform of Kamo's house like a demon, covered in blood, and said to the elders of his own house, "Diaresis, bring it, or die." That day, he didn't even have the courage to shoot. As long as I can kill them all, I can give anything. Zenin Ryuichi, you know what? I always want to tell you. I am the real genius. And you are just a rubbish expelled from the family. The Ryuichi on the ground spreads quickly, passing away like a cherry blossom. In front of me, Kamo Jair, what Zenin Ryuichi? What Gojo Satoru is a supporting role? I am the real protagonist. Ryuichi's indifferent voice rang suddenly behind him. Kamo Jair's eyes shrank slightly. Ryuichi's voice was lazy. Looking at Ryuichi's indifferent figure, the killing intent in his eyes was almost condensed into substance. I will record this battle and make it public after you die, so that the whole world will know. Are you good? Kanzi Sakura, Kamo Jair yelled frantically, the bloody curse power in his body constantly boiling. Next moment, pung, sudden, a terrifying force directly penetrated his heart. Rumble, kill, that violent Ryuichi-like power continued to wreak havoc in his body. It's on the way. Chapter 165. Advertisement. Pung. Rumble. Kamo Jair's body was like a cannonball, and it was blasted out again. The powerful force seemed to knock his internal organs to one place. The huge hole in the chest was bloodshot. The internal organs are clearly visible. Pouch. A bit of blood spattered from his mouth. Zizi. The blood fell on the ground, corroding the ground into a star-point deep pit. It's really a monster-like power, but it's far from it. Kamo Jair roared, and bursts of blood-red curse power continued to converge on his body, and the scar on his chest healed quickly. The aura that had been a little sluggish also began to rise slowly. Ryuichi looked at Kamo Jair, who was constantly healing, with a bit of playfulness in his eyes. If his punch goes on, even Zenin Shires should be knocked out on the spot. Although this guy had a little aura, he was still alive and kicking, and it seemed that his strength was still surging. It seems that the ghost can indeed bring strong power to people. Ryuichi is keenly aware. The power that is repairing Kamo Jair's body at this moment is constantly flowing out of his hair, that is to say, there is something hidden in Kamo Jair's hair at this moment. Blood fox. Kamo Jair's body quickly recovered, and between his hands, a strange handprint kept forming. Click. Behind him, a huge mass of blood kept gathering, and the sticky mass of blood showed various shapes. Finally, the blood leapt violently, and became a fierce tiger in the air. The breath is heavy. In an instant, the momentum in the entire forest changed continuously. Like hell, countless blood oozes out under Nyu Tiger's feet. Cover the entire ground. The surrounding trees began to be stained with a strange scarlet. Zenin Ryuichi. See it, the real fear. Roar. The tiger let out an earth-shattering roar. Roaring, savagely, and with unmatched power, he slew towards Ryuichi. Wherever he went, cracks appeared in the space. The turbulence of black space keeps emerging. Its sharp claws, everything it traverses, are completely turned into dross. Even this earth that carries everything seems to be unable to bear the anger of this tiger. Advertisement. Rumble. Click. Everything around was compressed in an instant, and ripples continued to rise in the air. Like blood-colored roses in full bloom one after another. With a cold murderous intent. A smile appeared at the corner of Ryuichi's mouth. Between the stature shaking, facing the scarlet tiger, he did not retreat but moved forward. Feng Hu Men turned slightly. His body instantly moved in front of the tiger. He looked at the monster who was countless times taller than himself. An unprecedented violence rose in Zenin Ryuichi's eyes. Kitten. But is it a pity? It's too big. I don't like it. Click. Roar. The scarlet tiger roared again. His voice stopped abruptly the next moment. Because. I don't know when. One of Ryuichi's palms has penetrated the tiger's head. The blood-colored roses that were found all around swept toward Ryuichi with endless blood. Next second, Ryuichi's whole body, the blue light rose, and waves of terrifying wind surged instantly. Click. The bloody color hadn't been carried for almost a second in the storm, and it instantly shattered. Ryuichi's palm was squeezed randomly in the head of the blood-colored tiger. Click. Wow. One after another cracks constantly exploded from which tiger's body. Then it turned into a bloody energy and quickly disappeared in front of Ryuichi. Bang bang bang. Ha 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 ha. How about, my appetizer grass is good. Kamo Jair looked at the dissipated tiger, not only did not panic in his eyes, but clapped unexpectedly. Looking at Ryuichi with a playful look. A boring trick, if you only have this, then the game is over. Ryuichi glanced at Kamo Jair casually. Stretching out his body, he made a burst of beans-like noise. Advertisement. Seeing Kamo Jair's rising power, an inexplicable smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and it disappeared in a flash. A guy who is not easy to kill, what a good sandbag, just to test Feng Huchi men with him. Ryuichi thought secretly in his heart. Don't worry, I won't let you down. I've been looking forward to it for a long time after all. Kamo Jair's voice actually began to become a bit deep, not at all the madness before. Among his pale blue eyes, one of them started to appear as if they were rendered by ink and wash, and it gradually changed to black. Ryuichi's figure was slowly reflected in his eyes. Unspeakable, treacherous and evil. Don't control my body casually. Kamo Jair suddenly changed his voice back to his previous madness again, and his face twitched. At the next moment, he showed a gloomy expression and said gloomily. Don't be so stingy. Well done, I will help you kill Zenin Ryuichi and Gojo Satoru. This matter, I want to do it myself. Ha ha ha, don't be silly, you can't do it yourself. The ink-colored eyes and light blue eyes kept changing on Kamo Jair's face. His voice is constantly changing between the two. Ryuichi looked at the scene in front of him, not in a hurry. The gossip array under the feet keeps turning. 9 palaces and 4 grids rippling slowly. As if countless numerology opportunities were transmitted in words, they changed one by one around his body. The speed is so fast that Ryuichi's vision is a bit trance. His feet tried in vain. Base. Like an evil Ryuichi, it burst out instantly. Even the man who claims to be the fastest in the Jujutsu world is far from being able to do it. Followed the trend and fell towards Ryuichi's head. Only by relying on speed, he actually achieved a power similar to breaking through the void. Go to hell. Splitting the air. Get ready. Meet despair. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Finally, Kamo Jair seemed to have reached a consensus with someone in his body. Haha, it would be bad if it was so long ago. Okay, don't make a noise. Just kill him. 2 completely different eyes, staring at Ryuichi's figure firmly at the same time. Base. Kamo Jair's figure appeared in front of Ryuichi in an instant. There was a horrible tearing force between his fingers. The palms were raised high. Chapter 166. Advertisement. Click. Wherever the claws passed, the void broke every inch. The endless black storm bred in his hands. Rumble. Facing the terrifying attack from the sky, an extremely deep light flashed in Ryuichi's eyes. The odd door flashed between. Ripples in the space. Base. At the moment when the terrifying claws are about to fall. Ryuichi flashed instantly. While the mind was shaking, the figure disappeared. Click. Kamo Jair's terrifying blow did not fall on the ground. However, there were a few black paw prints in the space. ZZZ. Arrays of curse power flickered in the crack, and there seemed to be some terrifying force preventing the space from repairing itself. Humph. I see how long you can hide. Hide. Don't get me wrong, I just don't want to get dirty. Try not to scream, it will hurt a bit. Kamo Jair looked at Ryuichi, who was smiling but not smiling. The body was about to exert its strength, but the ground under his feet fell like a quagmire. Imprisoned his body in this mud. Kun character Shaha. Wow, the black land is constantly imprisoning Kamo Jair's body like mud and sand. You yin me, ZZ. Click. No matter how hard Kamo Jair struggled, he couldn't break free of the mud for half a step, his body was falling a little bit. Unexpectedly, Zenin Ryuichi, who is well known, can only use this trick. Attached to the existence of Kamo Jair, said gloomily. I said, I just don't want to get my clothes dirty, believe it or not, Ryuichi shrugged helplessly. One-handed pinch. The formation plate under the foot rotates again. Then, hold back. Kionzi thousands of machines change. Buzzing. As Ryuichi's evil gesture fell, a golden aura continued to emerge around Kamo Jair, the aura was bright and opaque. Rumble. Falling like feathers. With a terrifying force, quietly fell. Rumble. Advertisement. Rumble. Boom. As the feathers fell one after another, the explosion sounded quickly. Watching this scene, Ryuichi did pinch with one hand again. Between bursts of mysterious aura surging, the surrounding air seemed to be evacuated in an instant. He even took everything around him into a certain silent. A vacuum quickly condensed in Ryuichi's hands. Daily word empty wind. Click. Ryuichi raised it with one hand, seemingly casually slashing a hand knife in the air. But it comes with it. Then is a vacuum enough to tear everything carries incomparable sharpness. Constantly emerging. Click, click, everything in the void is cut off. Kamo Jair, who had been bombarded in countless explosions, had lost his breath, but had not yet recovered from the flood of light and rain. That slash had already appeared in front of him. Stabbed. Almost instantaneously. Under that power, his body was completely torn in half. It's fragile like a piece of tofu just out of water. Damn it, Zenin Ryuichi. Don't you dare. Let me out. Even if it was torn into 2 paragraphs. But Kamo Jair, who was still roaring and roaring alive, was hooked by countless bloodshots. The 2 sections of the body unexpectedly began to heal at an extremely fast speed. Only Ryuichi did notice, now, the unknown existence that occupies half of Kamo Jair's body. It seems that the control over the body has become more expanded. Even Kamo Jair's pale blue eyes began to appear a little bit of haze. So, you seem to want me to kill him. Ryuichi watched Kamo Jair's tone become a little deeper. The pair of moon-white eyes stared at the pair of eyes that gradually turned into ink color. Seems to see through the hidden secrets. When Kamo Jair heard this, the crazy expression on his face quickly disappeared, replaced by a deadly, stiff and cold face. Rumble, click, advertisement. His hands were actually slowly lifted from the mud and sand, and gently buckled on the ground, a deep scarlet oozing out of his body. Next moment, Shaha, who had restrained him from moving for a long time, was directly torn apart by him. Destroyed and changed the land again. Feng Hu Chi Men's changed situation was completely destroyed at this moment. Seeking flowers. But Ryuichi did not see the slightest surprise in his eyes. There was even a look that should have appeared on his face. How did you see it? Haha, what do you think? When Kamo Jair heard this, he lowered his head and carefully looked at the strange game that was constantly turning over the blue light, and he also had the answer in his heart. In this jujutsu, which is not a domain but better than a domain, it is estimated that any changes in one's own body will hardly escape Zenin Ryuichi's changes. Anyway, my goal has already reached half, so it's not as good. Kamo Jair's eyes twitched. Said to Ryuichi, it's this guy who wants to kill you. It has nothing to do with me. I am not interested in you. If you are willing to help me kill this guy completely, then I can retreat immediately. Even if you want to come, don't want to fight with me. After all, you humans have only one purpose for coming to this island, and that is the door that symbolizes your desires. How about it? Think about it. Kamo Jair looked at Ryuichi seductively, spreading his arms, as if waiting for Ryuichi to drop the blow, completely erasing the body's original consciousness. He believes that this condition he proposed should be completely irresistible to Ryuichi. But what he didn't notice was a trace of black air rose from his body. Ha ha ha, do you think I am a humble human? There were a few smiles in Ryuichi's eyes. Earth, click, you are cursed spirit. Under the eternal night, the world is silent. In the moon-white eyes. In the tone, the mockery of human beings is beyond words. Boom. The odd game at the foot quietly disappeared. He has just demonstrated what he thinks in his mind. The effect of using a single hexagram to the extreme can be almost like Tianwei in the odd gate game, ignoring most of the rules. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. A black energy that rushed straight into the sky erupted on Ryuichi's body. Do you know, in front of me, it is best to ensure that your curse is intact, otherwise, just bow down in front of me. Kamo Jair asked rhetorically. Now that the experiment has ended, this sandbag has no value for existence. A touch of eternal night quietly rises. Chapter 167. Advertisement. Attached to the weird existence on Kamo Jair, watching the weird power on Ryuichi. In the eyes rendered by ink and wash, there was a bit of jealousy. This power is in the power surging in Ryuichi's body. He noticed a few powers that he was very familiar with, and that power made his whole body tremble. It seems to have encountered a natural enemy. Since just now, I have discovered one thing, your ability is fusion. Whether it is the blood tiger or the jujutsu that you drained with good curse power, they are all gathered together in a fusion way. Your attack method looks very gorgeous, but in fact it is just a manifestation of the full aggregation of power. In other words, your jujutsu origin is fusion. That's interesting. Ryuichi's eyes flashed a little bit of evil, and he looked at Kamo Jair in front of him, his fingers beating. A ghostly figure slowly walked out from behind him. With long white hair and fluttering blood, with her appearance, even everything in the world began to become a bit damp. It was like a sign of the coming heavy rain. Kamo Jair's eyes shrank tightly. Temple. Impossible. This guy should be asleep. It's only right to be asleep. Absolutely impossible. She absolutely cannot go against the will of Juden and Ibaraki. What the hell did you guy do? Looking at Kamo Jair, who was suddenly flustered. The corner of Ryuichi's mouth evokes an indifferent range. Whispered. There has never been anything impossible in this world. Impossibility in your mouth is just the denial of the truth by the weak. You said, When infinite fusion and infinite division are encountered, who is stronger? Ryuichi's voice was crisp and clean, like the afternoon sun, but it was indeed cold and creepy in Kamo Jair's ears at this moment, like the babble of a demon in hell. The moment his body saw the temptress, there was an unstoppable tremor. Just like a goat meeting a hungry wolf, even if every cell in the body is shouting, there is no way to move the body. This is a natural enemy. His appearance represents the destruction of what is restrained. Click. Wow. Sudden. Kamo Jair's body plummeted to the ground. A thing that looked like a ball of wool began to burst out of his head little by little. Advertisement. It's like a loach. Began to splash out frantically. FK. Lie. You lied to me. The tempest was actually controlled by this man. The ghosts are playing with you. There was a burst of black light from his body. In an instant, everything around him seemed to have been swallowed. Constantly shrouded in black, Ryuichi also raised a palm, blocking him, the blue gossip, taking advantage of the trend, blocking everything out. Shocking. Shocking. The black ball of thread flickered, constantly realizing the body into a human form. With a bit of weirdness and horror, he constantly perfected his body parts. Fleeing madly in the forest. Damn it. I was almost able to fuse the blood of the Kamo clan, damn it. Lie. You are pitting me. Tempura is his well-deserved natural enemy. This point, he has been clear in countless contests since ancient times. In the imaginary cursed spirit and the emotional cursed spirit, it is no longer known how many battles have erupted. And he doesn't know how many times he has been defeated by the Tempura's ability in one war after another. Facing this guy who was born to restrain himself. Fleeing has become the only thought in his mind. Hung. He cut off a big tree with one foot. It is estimated that he has escaped to a safe enough place at this moment. According to his knowledge of Tempura, that guy's abilities are not suitable for movement. Who? Lie, you know that my only natural enemy of Fei Lian is a tempest, and it is calculated to me like this. Sure enough, are you cursed spirits born from human beings, all rubbish? The cursed spirit, who called himself Fei Lian, looked at a mountain in the distance. There was a deep resentment in the tone. It turns out that your name is Fei Lian, I seem to have seen you in a certain book. Received by people's money, dissipated with others, flies away from others, and bleeds. Unexpectedly, you guy is still an imaginary cursed spirit. Hung. Fei Lian's eyes shrank again. He would never forget this voice until he died. This abusive voice was the one who completely saw him through Ryuichi. Hoo. Click. Everything around him began to appear like a kaleidoscope of phantoms. Everything around me began to hang upside down like a mirror. Advertisement. At this moment, the world seemed to be driven by some powerful force, which made Fei Lian's consciousness begin to appear a little fuzzy. It should be the sky that I stepped on under my feet. Why is the earth under my feet? No. The earth should be under your feet. No. The blue genius should be at your feet. He went crazy and covered his head. Looking at the sky and the earth, I kept mumbling. Domain expansion. Yindu Dead Realm. Base. Next moment, Ryuichi's figure sits on a huge black throne. Floating in the air, everything around began to become chaotic. Fei Lian's consciousness seemed to become clear at the moment Ryuichi appeared. That kind of cognitive distortion in the subconscious was about to tear his soul apart. When I was around Fei Lian's fearful surroundings, there was a sudden business halt, as if he had lost the ability to speak. Goodbye. Cognitive distortion, change of consciousness. It's like a doll without a soul. In Fei Lian's mind, a false feeling of running was planted, so he would keep running. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. From the beginning, death equals existence, and existence equals destruction. However, a big black loach, I am not interested, so. His domain has already been instantaneously expanded. You have good abilities. If it weren't for being ugly and disgusting, you might be a partner with a Tempura. Because Fei Lian Dui ignored the faint changes in the surroundings under the fear of Tian Luo. His eyes quickly lost their expression. A cognition that grew from the depths of the soul began to be completely changed. Long before Ryuichi had lifted the restraint of not being allowed to use other stunts. Only, in Fei Lian's mind, all the original consciousness began to become trance. The hands were raised high, clapping constantly, as if in his cognition, the palm was the place where the sound was made. Chapter 168. Advertisement. In an instant, everything in Fei Lian's mind began to continuously become distorted, under the collision of death and survival. His body and curse roots are constantly shattering. Click. The cracks on the body continued to provoke, and Jujutsu started uncontrollably. Jung. His body began to twist into a black pill the size of a bean. Hovering constantly in the air. This is. A light flashed in Ryuichi's eyes, and he gently waved between his palms. The black mud pill quietly fell into his palm. The domain is lifted. Base. Everything around it quickly dissipated like a cloud. The throne is gone. Ryuichi's body seemed to be floating in the air with breeze, floating above the sky. He picked up the bean-sized pill and looked at it carefully. It seems to be aware of something. A hint of playfulness appeared on his face. The cursed spirit born in emotions will disappear completely after being eliminated, until the next time it is called by human emotions, but at that time he is equivalent to a brand new cursed spirit, 23 without any previous consciousness. Quote. The cursed spirit that was born in the imaginary will indeed leave a residuals, and then after being thought of by humans to a certain level, it will once again descend on the residuals. It's interesting. As soon as Ryuichi grasped the residuals, Ji Yuling immediately activated it. Oh. The black Yongyi kept instilling into the mud pill. Almost instantaneously, Ryuichi realized that Namaru could really be restrained. And it may be because the hypothesis lodged on this was temporarily shattered. The cursed spirit is not the cursed spirit, but the cursed spirit's abilities. In other words, the jujutsu held by Firen is now in the hands of Ryuichi. And there is no need to obey the spirit at all. Ryuichi held out his palm with interest. Buzzing. A bloody whirlpool appeared in his palm. Although the power looks choppy, in fact, there is not much substantive power. But it has even more magical abilities. Dry character Sakura. Kun character 2H. Base. Advertisement. Ryuichi quickly pinched with one hand and settled on the ground. An imaginary Ryuichi mirror appeared quickly. Ryuichi punched the scene. But, this time the mirror image didn't disappear like the last time, but an extremely huge rock was shot from the body in an instant, rushing towards Ryuichi. Ryuichi saw this scene, and there was also a hint of joy in his eyes. The figure retreated quickly. The ability to perfectly blend two completely different guas together is simply tailor-made for Ryuichi. With this ability, Feng Chi Men's power has increased by at least 50%. Ryuichi nodded in satisfaction. Then he looked at the mountain that Fei Lian was looking at just now. A trace of scarlet appeared in his eyes. I'm tired of playing the house wine game. Next, I just had dinner. Base. Pipe. After that, his figure disappeared instantly. Only the broken ground in the forest on the ground is telling that there has been a terrible battle here. At the same time, curse the other side of the island. Gojo Satoru took his brother's hand. In front of him, a chain that didn't know where it came from locked a golden toad on the front end. Cracking. Uncle Gojo, it's about to get to the next level, croaking, but the kid is taking you a short distance, those big idiots can't find you at all. That's really hard for you, have tea together. Gojo Satoru said to it with a smile. Looking at the familiar smiling face, Buzz's whole body was constantly oozing cold sweat. Don't dare. It's my honor to serve the handsome Gojo-sama. Hearing this, Gojo Satoru's face showed a few useful expressions. This is the expression just now. Counting down to 5, while smiling, he wiped out all the avatars he had created in an instant. Is this guy really human? Wrong. Damn, he must be a monster in human skin. Buzz screamed wildly in his heart, but his face was still dog-legged. Now he just wanted to send this plague god away quickly. With so many people on the island this time, they were all monsters. Sha Tuo is said to have also overturned. Bath, right. Gojo Satoru suddenly opened his mouth and frightened Buzz. Then hurriedly said, Master Gojo, call it whatever you want. Oh, okay, Toad. Advertisement. Depend on. You all know what my name is, but you still dare to call me that. Even with 10,000 dissatisfaction in his heart, Buzz did not dare to show the slightest dissatisfaction. Said flatly, what's the matter, Uncle Gojo? How long have you been on this curse island? That time was too long. I was born on this island since I was conscious, but I think I should have gone out before. There are always people who can't see clearly in my mind, who are talking to me. But the last time this happened was 100 years ago. Gojo Satoru rubbed his chin, thinking a little bit in his eyes. The cursed island is opened once every 10 years, and the cursed spirit needs to devour humans to become stronger and survive. If he only relied on devouring the people who landed on the island once every 10 years, he would have been annihilated. But looking at this guy's appearance, I'm not lying. There are so many secrets on this island. Gojo Satoru thought of his predecessor who had lost his memory. The kind senior who was called the strongest, in the last 10 years became extremely decadent after losing his memory. The last time Curse Island was opened, do you remember a man whose hair was the same color as mine? His jujutsu can control the rock. Buzz scratched his head with his frog claws. As if thinking about something more carefully. His round face on Toad's body suddenly appeared astonished. 10 years. 10 years. Why am I not in a hurry anymore? In the last 10 years. In the last one. Bass began to look at his hand in horror and kept talking. Suddenly his eyes widened, staring at Gojo Satoru's face. His eyes bulged, like a chance to fall out in the next second. The tone became a little weird. Gojo Satoru, I see, haha, it turns out that everything is fake. It turned out to be like this, Gojo Satoru. Buzz's voice suddenly became extremely solemn, as if he had changed his soul. With a scolding, even Gojo was in a daze. He looked at Gojo Satoru anxiously and said, Go back and tell. Rumble. He was halfway through his words, and his body seemed to burn with some terrible power. Gojo Satoru reacted very quickly, and pulled his younger brother behind him. But Buzz couldn't even make a scream, and quickly vaporized in the air. Sorry, this guy just likes nonsense. A brisk voice sounded quietly. Chapter 169. Advertisement. Sorry, this guy just likes nonsense. A brisk voice sounded quietly. In the sky, countless black feathers slowly fell. Like a heavy rain of death outlined by a funeral song in hell. Quack quack, quack quack. Crows covering the sky flew out from the depths of the forest. Covering everything in the world. They go against the natural instincts. Hovering continuously in the air in groups. The entire Curse Island was shrouded in black shadows. When the feathers fall, the figure of Alai slowly emerged among countless falling feathers. Scattered star feathers stepped on her feet. Like a philosopher who has read poetry and books. There was a bit of unspeakable tolerance on his body. The corners of his mouth cocked slightly. With a faint smile, he looked at Gojo Satoru in front of him. A pair of azure blue eyes flashed with an indescribable look. Funeral glanced at the lie falling from the sky, then looked back at his brother. With a dazed face, his head flicked quickly. Said rather dumbly. Brother, he looks like you. No wonder the funeral will be watched back and forth between these two people. The two of them also had azure blue eyes, in which countless stars flickered. The heights are almost the same, and they all have scattered silver hair. The only difference is that the lie wears a black cloth on his head to cover his forehead, and there is a mole on the lower left corner of his mouth. But even so, at first glance, I thought there were really two Gojo Satoru. Or think that Gojo Satoru has a brother. Gojo Satoru glanced at the location of the burnt-out Buzz, a dangerous light appeared in his eyes. He raised his head and looked at this figure 80% like himself, for some reason. A disgust rising from the bottom of his heart burned in his eyes almost uncontrollably. Gojo Satoru raised a hand and squeezed his chin, as if thinking about something. Suddenly raised a finger, looked at the lie and said seriously. Although we look alike, but obviously I am a little taller than you, sorry, from this point of view I am perfect. After all, he made a gesture, and the hair that he stood up was just a hair taller than a lie. Advertisement. Pouch. Lie covered her mouth, as if she couldn't help but laughed, holding her belly with the other hand. It seems that even the tears are laughing. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, it won't work, you guy. Too interesting to watch, it's so fun, are you six-eyed holders so funny? That guy is the same, Why don't you like this joke? He lied and said that except for a funny thing at the beginning, he didn't say anything. Instead, he stared at his own Gojo Satoru, waved his hand and continued. Look at me this way, I would be shy. Ha ha ha, sorry. Gojo Satoru seemed to wake up when he heard this, and was embarrassed to scratch his silver hair. But his eyes did become increasingly cold. Although it is impolite to say so, but I don't know why, such a perfect body, in you, always makes me feel a bit nauseous. So can I trouble you, get out of this body. Rumble. Empty. The moment the voice settled, a breath of terror radiated from Gojo Satoru's body. For an instant, focus on him. An extremely profound force burst out in an instant. Click. Hum. Click. Just like Mei Mei has a pair of invisible big hands arbitrarily shaking everything, and this world is like a toy under that big hand. In an instant, everything around him was instantly propelled by Gojo Satoru's burst of power. Obviously nothing happened, but it makes me feel that at this moment, there is some unspeakable change in this area. Lai looked around playfully, a trace of vigilance appeared in his eyes, which disappeared in a flash. Great. At such a young age, can infinity be controlled to this degree? Split the infinity into countless pieces, and then push everything in this area to the outside of the infinity. Gojo Satoru, you really didn't disappoint me. At the moment just now. Gojo Satoru's no lower limit technique has been used no less than 10 times. Everything in the surrounding space was expelled by countless infinity. It seemed that the distance between the mountains did not change at all. But in fact, all the spaces among them have been surrounded by the infinite that has split countless times. Advertisement. Even if you move it lightly, you might get lost for a moment between 0 and 1. Faced with opponents of Gojo Satoru's level, it is deadly enough to breathe. Buried, wait for me over there. Gojo Satoru stroked Buried's head seriously, pointing to the only gap left behind. The funeral didn't say anything, because he knew that an enemy who could make his brother so serious would be a drag even if he was around. Diaresis, you humans really took great pains to protect the cubs. Lai spread his hands and said casually. Without the existence of that child, with the arrogance of Gojo Satoru, he would never have made such a layout. Of course, this also shows that Gojo Satoru attaches great importance to the sudden appearance of this guy who was very similar to himself. What kind of cub? It's so ugly, he's mine. Base. Before the words fell, only an afterimage was skipped, and Gojo Satoru's figure instantly appeared infinite cracks, trapping the lie in front of him. Pung. Brother. A punch with terrifying power was directly clasped on the belly of the lie. Click. Pung. The tyrannical force caused a shock, and through the body of the lie, it did indeed cause ripples, and the space even trembled. Lai raised his hand to wipe off the blood stain from the corner of his mouth. But even in the face of such a tyrannical punch, the lie's body did not move half a step. Next, let me play with you. Everyone. Click. Dot 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 dot. As if it had never appeared before. This punch was originally a temptation, and he didn't expect the other party to actually not hide. P.S. Brothers, I have so many updates, will I be regarded as a naive person? Some authors have already sprayed me and said that I write so much on this subject, and I am not still rushing to the street. I am so wronged and want to slap him in the face. In a punch, Gojo Satoru retreated and returned to his original position. He opened his arms sharply. What a coincidence. There is no lower limit technique, and I will too. Ah, this power. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Are you good, Zhao Sang? In the surrounding void, the invisible infinity disappeared instantly. Nice power. A burst of power that Gojo Satoru was very familiar with appeared instantly. There was a slight change in the voice, not as gentle as before, but a bit fanatical. Chapter 170. Advertisement. His voice slowly sounded in Gojo Satoru's ears with a bit of indescribable depth. Gojo Satoru's eyes shrank sharply. An incredible line appeared in his eyes. Jujutsu is not the only one in this world. Although there is a certain definition, that is, there will be no two powerful jujutsu in the same era, but the facts are not absolute. Jujutsu is a gift that was engraved in the body the moment jujutsu was born. It also determines what height a jujutsu teacher can finally reach. No lower limit technique is the strongest technique in the Gojo family. No one in the jujutsu world has ever doubted this, but since ancient times, there are only two people who can have a lower limit technique. One of the strongest contemporary, has become a super Gojo Satoru at the age of 16. The other is the generation of Gojo patriarch who belonged to the contemporary patriarch of the Zenin family during the Warring States period. In a family that has passed on for thousands of years, in the long years, only two jujutsu masters who can master the unlimited art style were born. This sounds a bit ridiculous, but it is real. Because, compared with ordinary jujutsu, there is one condition that must be met if you want to use the no lower bound technique, that is, 6 eyes. No lower limit art requires absolute precision to be able to perform, and the control of the mantra power must be accurate to the atom as a unit to have no lower limit in the cloud. To do this, only the pupil of the sky, 6 eyes, who can see through everything can do it. Also, before the birth of Gojo Satoru, all the tribesmen who possessed unlimited art were open black lens bracket waist people, close black lens bracket. But at this moment, the guy in front of him really controlled the infinite. That can only be done without a lower limit technique. In other words, that body is more than just looking like yourself. Ha 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 ha. Presumably you already guessed it. That's right. This body is your unbelievable ancestor. Lai laughed triumphantly, looking at Gojo Satoru's expressionless face. It seemed to be a bit boring. The smile gradually converged. Why, are you angry? It's been 1,000 years, you and this guy, apart from being connected by blood, are completely strangers. Lai looking at Gojo Satoru's calm expression, he felt that what was hidden behind the calm was the tranquility before the eruption of the volcano. What do you think of human beings, scum? Gojo Satoru used his feet in vain. For the first time, such a pure killing intent appeared in the eyes of the sky. Whether it's humans, cursed spirit, or curse, he only thinks about one thing now. That is to pull the trash hidden in the skin of one's ancestors out of that body. Then kill him. Advertisement. This is the first time that Gojo Satoru has the urge to do something like this in the 16 years since its birth. Even when he was assassinated by more than a dozen curse divisions at the same time, Gojo Satoru felt indifferent. At this time, like a killing god possessed, rich to almost extreme murderous, the surrounding air was slightly solidified. His figure looked like an angry dragon, rushing to the Lai brazenly. Lai looking at the aggressive Gojo Satoru, a hint of pride appeared at the corner of his mouth. Humans are so irritable. Base. His palm suddenly lifted. You haven't tasted your own jujutsu yet. Hey. Rumble. Click. A translucent force instantly formed in the hands of the Lai. The powerful thrust suddenly broke out. Click. The shock emerges instantly. There was a harsh sigh from the entire ground. The sound sounded like a cat scratching a blackboard. Noisy. Zzz. He immediately submerged Gojo Satoru's body. Next moment, a tyrannical force emerged in the impact. Bang. Empty. The original torrential impact collapsed like broken glass. The flow of thrust was directly stopped by the force of the counteracting force, and instantly disappeared. A green smoke rose from Gojo Satoru's palm. Don't make a mistake, you are also called no lower limit, or don't discredit my jujutsu. There was a rare coldness in Gojo Satoru's voice. Advertisement. At this moment, there is no longer the frivolous appearance of the past. I actually don't care about most things, such as family honor, strength and status, and money rights. These things, to me, are like gum being chewed over and over again, boring. But the only thing is that I was talked about by the old man, and I have been talking about my ancestors since I was a child. I sometimes think that if I were born in the same age as him, it would be very interesting. For the sake of the family, I don't hesitate to sacrifice all my interests. I, the ancestor of a great bard who dreams of becoming a great bard, will fight the defeated Gojo family on my shoulders. While speaking, Gojo Satoru's eyes seemed to see that during the Warring States period, he was unparalleled in talent and had great power, but he dreamed of becoming a bard man who used poetry to persuade the nations to give up war. He hit the wall again and again, failed again and again, but he still refused to give up his dream. Finally, when the family was alive and dead, he gave up his pursuit of the master, closed the transparent world in front of him, and became the greatest Gojo patriarch. The Gojo family never participated in any country-to-country battle until the battle died in the imperial test. He seemed to have seen the man smile, and looked at the present Fuzang, gently stroking the bamboo flute on his waist that he hadn't touched for a long time. There is infinite tenderness in his eyes. Then, everything in front of Gojo Satoru was broken, and replaced by a somewhat sinister face in front of him. His jujutsu, how could he be so weak? See what power is. Water chestnut. Click. Gojo Satoru's hands quickly knot the seal. This is the first time he has made the knot since the retreat. There seemed to be a phantom in his hand. Lai's whole body instinctively sensed a hint of danger. Click. Strong suction and thrust, constantly colliding together in space, is an imaginary far beyond the realm of human existence. In infinity and finite, in reality and fantasy. The 0 and 1 that have been explored and pursued in countless human history, at this moment, there is a trace of faintness. It broke out instantly. Rumble. An indescribable shock of terror seemed to emerge from a crack in some kind of space. It is a kind of thing that should not exist in the world, but stay in the human imaginary. Annihilation. Chapter 171. Advertisement. Lie looking at the terrifying power in front of me that I had never seen before. Standing stiffly in place, as if stunned, the pair of 6 eyes, like Gojo Satoru, flashed a kind of light called fear without interruption. Gojo Satoru. This is the strongest of this era. It's really brilliant. Just the next moment he screamed. Rumble. The meaning of all existence is instantly erased. Everything in the forest was like snowflakes on the TV, and as the power was cut off, it was completely plunged into darkness. If this world is a blank piece of paper, then Gojo Satoru's blow is an eraser that can erase all these handwritings, no. Or rather, integrate this world into a new page. Rumble. Click. Under this endless, everything in the world has completely lost its original trace. Gojo Satoru looked at the scene in front of him that was like purgatory on earth. There was a slight gasp in his mouth. Since the prince test, he has mobilized his strongest power with all his strength for the first time, even if he has a curse power that is close to infinite. At this moment, Gojo Satoru's body also showed a somewhat rare fatigue. Sorry, my ancestors, but I think, you are such a free fellow, your body should be the yoke that binds your soul to you. Gojo Satoru said softly. The curse power of the whole body has just diminished. Sudden. His azure eyes condensed slightly, his muscles tightened instantly, his eyes were serious and he looked at that piece of purgatory. The funeral behind him just wanted to run, but saw Gojo Satoru wave his hand violently. Don't come, funeral, it's not over yet. Click. Click. A terrifying sound rang from the purgatory that had been erased, like something breaking through the layers of the body, like a butterfly coming out of its cocoon. Gojo Satoru, you really didn't disappoint me, but don't underestimate this idiot who was known as the strongest body in 1,000 years. The mad voice was like a madman, and this kind of madness leaked from the bones in his tone. It was a kind of hysteria that would completely ruin everything. Crazy. Let me start the second round. The figure of the lie slowly emerged in the void. Advertisement. There was a sneer at the corner of Gojo Satoru's mouth. Then play again. Rumble. Click. The 2 terrifying oars that went straight to Shaohan burst out unscrupulously, and violently collided together. A battle from the strongest 1,000 years ago and invincible 1,000 years later. Even if it kicks off. At the same time, on the tip of a horn on this island shaped like a skeleton. Yada sat cross-legged on the ground. His eyes are like a mirror, reflecting on the other side of the whole world. In the eyes of this world, it is so peaceful, so plain, so lifeless. If someone stares at this pair of eyes, they will definitely feel why this world is so boring, and finally, in the endless loneliness, they will end their own sound. Lie, I don't care what your purpose is. As long as you don't cause any trouble before your eldest brother is resurrected, even if you subvert this sky, I will depend on you. Yada's tone was filled with indescribable depression. How long Yada lived, even he himself couldn't remember clearly. He only remembers the day when his consciousness was born. In a society that just knew the courtesy, justice, and shame, the first one was hanged in front of the simple structure called house. That moment, among the countless onlookers, there was a lot of fear born. Escape from death is the instinct of all human beings, or all living things. And the guy who could be called a human just now chose to end his precious life. The fear that completely violated the instinct of life directly derives Yada. His birth was in an instant. He watched these humans choose to end themselves in endless peace. Humans are just a bunch of stupid food. He looked at the dying human tobacco on the pipe in his hand, with a little indescribable complexity. Wow. The flame ignited, and those humans disappeared. Finally, there was a look of relief on his face. Right. It was this expression that made Yada the most disgusted expression. It is clear that the life that is hard to get is wasted when it is said to be wasted. The existence of such a creature is a kind of blasphemy. A rare trace of anger appeared in Yada's eyes. Seeking flowers. Then, in the muddy eyes that looked like mud and sand, suddenly turned behind him. Advertisement. Those eyes were like fish, appearing strangely behind Yada's head. Staring at a corner in the darkness. Who? Da da da. As he growled low throughout his life, a crisp footstep sounded from the depths of the cave. Every step has an indescribable charm. It's like walking around in a certain and elegant melody. Looking at the lazy boy who appeared in front of him. Yada turned around in an instant. No, or it could be said that his body position was reversed in an instant. Zenin Ryuichi. When are you? Yada clearly didn't notice any big things appearing around him, and there was no slight fluctuation of curse power. Dot 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 dot. But, Ryuichi actually appeared before his eyes. Ha, Zenin Ryuichi yawned, as if he hadn't woken up for a while. When I walked to the side of a huge rock, I stretched out my hand, the curse was light and the dust was wiped out. He did it slowly. Looking at Yada who looked like a dead sea with those moon-white eyes, the corners of his mouth brought an inexplicable meaning. I just saw that you were thinking about things, so I didn't bother you. If you want to come, you don't have any opinions, old man. There really is no opinion. People who want to kill are sent to the door. According to your current society, it is called. Yada seemed to think about it for a while and slowly spit out two words. It's called takeaway, right? Quote. Ryuichi didn't care about the hostility in Yada's mouth. Like an ordinary boy next door, he showed a kind expression. Even if you say that, I don't have anything to vote for you. Otherwise, you will just take it and eat yourself. Didn't it mean that cursed spirit gets hungry and even eats itself? It's like those who were made immortal by you. Hearing this, Yada was taken aback, his face even more stiff. How would you know? In this world, as long as I want to, there is nothing I don't know. Ryuichi waved his hand indifferently. Is it? Then you know, will you die today? 2. Chapter 172. Advertisement. A trace of murderous intent appeared in Yada's eyes. The terrifying curse power exploded like a flash flood. In the cave, the endless murderous air, with a deep chill, wants to freeze everything. The only fear that seemed to have existed since the ancient times spread out around Yada. Buzzing. Hoo. The suffocation was like the substance, turned into bursts of wind pressure, blowing away everything around it. The wind pressure messed Ryuichi's hair. His eyes moved slightly, and he seemed to be a little bit distressed. Rumble. Click. Next moment, an evil spirit that was not weaker than Yada, rose up in Ryuichi. That is a completely different killing intent. In Yada's evil spirit is fear, despair, and life's fear of passing away. And Ryuichi's killing intent is simple 437, pure, a single killing for the sake of killing, or rather. Heaven is ruthless. I have no interest in playing with you, but the gift you gave last time, I like it very much. Ryuichi looked at Yada with a hint of sarcasm at the corner of his mouth. Tap the tip of your hand lightly. A black whirlpool appeared behind him. Subsequently, countless white torrents gush out from the vortex. Yada looked at the white torrent that appeared, her eyes twitched slightly. What appeared at this moment was the same batch of white curses he had released in Shugazawa, which he thought had been removed by Ryuichi. But I didn't expect to be controlled by this guy. Cursed spirit operation, can you achieve this level? Yada thought to himself. Even if these wastes are given to you, how can they be used? The moment Yada's voice fell, the voice seemed to have some magical power. Those white cursed spirits actually began to want to destroy themselves, but only a slight throbbing, they were suppressed by the force of the spirits. The power that can make everything self-destructive. Very strong, old man. Ryuichi snapped his fingers casually. Snapped. The white cursed spirit army plunged into the black world again. Ryuichi slowly stood up from the stone. The toes moved slightly. The breath of Shuanao rose again. Advertisement. Tai Chi, Bagua, and 9 palaces slowly emerged under his feet. Yada wore a fierce stern in his eyes. Base. Use your feet in vain and don't talk nonsense. Although the curse power surged on his body, there was no jujutsu attack. Instead, he punched out with pure flesh. He took a few quick steps on the ground with his feet, and his figure was like a bolt of lightning. The iron fist full of veins slammed Ryuichi's head brazenly. Ryuichi retreated violently, a flash of light flashed in his eyes, and a sharp kick up. Pung. Click. This kick directly hit Yada's fist, and between the power collisions, the black thunder flashed in the void. You are far worse than strength. Ryuichi's old power did not retreat, but the new power regenerated and directly kicked Yada's fist back. Pung. The force of the new life made this kick out again without stopping. Awesomely kicked Yada's chin. If it is a normal person, the chin, which is all over the vagus nerve, will be hit by such a powerful blow. Even if he is not in a coma, he will be in a trance. But Yada is a human being, a monster that can dangle his eyes on his body. He is not afraid of these at all. Make a fist again with one hand. With an unstoppable murderous intent, he killed Ryuichi's heart. If you have enough power, you have to try it before you know it. Pung. This extremely fast punch hit Ryuichi's heart directly. The tyrannical power exploded, and even Ryuichi's physical fitness couldn't help but suffer. But even so, he did not take a step back. For the first time, a little blood appeared on the corner of his mouth. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said calmly. I said you are still far away. Pung. I don't know when. Ryuichi's palm has been pressed against Yada's heart. A pure force burst out instantly. The ultimate power washes away the lead and bursts out everything around. The cave shook violently. The power is constantly surging. Yada's body stepped back again and again. A huge hole in his chest pierced his chest. Yada lowered his head and could even see the dense forest behind him through the hole. Oh. Advertisement. Click. The flesh and blood on his body were constantly squirming. Slowly closed his wound, looking at Ryuichi indifferently in front of him. There was a bit of confusion in his tone. Is this the feeling of being infinitely close to death? If I were a fragile human, I should have died now. It's so good, it turns out that this is the feeling. At the moment just now, everything in the world is far away from me, and everything is constantly becoming quiet. This feeling is really wonderful and makes me want to go crazy. Zenin Ryuichi, for thousands of years, I have never been as close to death as I was just now. In order to thank you, I will give you the greatest gift of mankind. Yada's voice appeared obsessed. The black mist around him kept rolling. Countless souls seemed to mourn among the undead. Ouch. Everything becomes extremely quiet at this moment. Everything in front of Ryuichi's eyes began to fade strangely. It's like returning from a color TV to a black and white screen. Looking at all this dullness, even Ryuichi's mind is a bit bored at the moment. This type of jujutsu is really troublesome. Even Feng Chi Men is not completely able to completely defend against attacks on the spirit and soul level. Of course, the more reason is that Ryuichi's mastery of Feng Chi Men has not reached the extreme. Looking at the world, it's like a program, running busy, how boring. If not, go to hell. Zenin Ryuichi. Death. Everything is free. How boring it is to live. It seems that as long as you use a little force, that terrifying force will instantly end your life. His hand unexpectedly pinched his neck involuntarily. Are you bored? Are you bored with the unchanging life in this world? P.S. Don't worry, everyone, I will post a chapter after I finish writing a chapter, write it again, and write it again. I forgot how many chapters I posted. Chapter 173. Advertisement. Endless silence is born from the deepest fear of life. In Ryuichi's heart, a call like the devil kept ringing. His eyes, which were originally like a bright moon, have now faded away, and their expressions have become like an old black and white TV, constantly glowing with dead gray. His breath began to dissipate gradually. His palm tightly choked his neck. The terrifying power like a giant beast has not yet emerged, and it has caused a few ripples in the surrounding air. Yada looked at Zenin Ryuichi, who was controlled by her own jujutsu, and a smile appeared in her eyes, which had always been like the Dead Sea. Go to die. Zenin Ryuichi. Living is the greatest sorrow of mankind. Rumble. Click. Ryuichi's palm suddenly exploded with extremely powerful force. He pinched his throat tightly. But, just when he was about to tear his own artery, the gray eyes that were originally under the influence of jujutsu instantly showed a different look. You lied to you, idiot. 23. Boom. Click. Ryuichi's palm turned sharply, like an ancient evil Ryuichi, roaring, and appeared directly in front of Yada. And that moment, his body clearly didn't move. More like the space was transferred in an instant. The positions of Ryuichi and Yada were distorted. Faced with such a swift blow, Yada's body was too late to react. Null. This punch, like a rocket, exploded on Yada's head. The horrible power book burst out. A large number of black thunders began to appear in the surrounding space, which was caused by the twisting of the quantum level driven by the excessively powerful force. There are hardly any obstacles. Yada's head, like a watermelon falling on the ground, exploded with a burst. Cursed spirits are born in human emotions, but they have the same structure as human bodies. They will suffer pain, die, souls, and emotions. Advertisement. Under such a terrifying attack, Yada's head was completely reduced to fly ash, floating in the air like foamy dross. Subsequently, empty. His awkward body is like a dry cucumber, curled up quickly, constantly wilting. Patter. Finally fell to the ground feebly. Ryuichi did not relax at all looking at such a scene. His strong perception of curse power let him know. At this moment, the weird cursed spirit with the ultimate death aura just now, his spell power fluctuation is not only not broken, but it is even more powerful than just now. Wow. Hoo. An inexplicable strange wind blew up, and in the midair, countless air currents began to converge continuously. Zenin Ryuichi, are you strong? Even in thousands of years, I have rarely seen a guy as strong as you, but it is a pity. I am immortal. Mankind's yearning and fear of death, Once it doesn't disappear, I won't die for a moment. Unlike those cursed spirits that will continue to be born, I am the only one, and the only one left. The eternal and irreplaceable cursed spirit has even surpassed the time when mankind recorded civilization. Yada's voice kept ringing in the air current. The figure gradually became clear. His breath began to change somewhat. Compared with before, the voice has a bit more emotional meaning. Click. Yada, who fell on the ground again from the airflow, seemed to be a little younger than before, and his body wasn't as rickety as before. Yada just now looked like a 7-year-old man. Now he is just a sturdy old man who is no more than half 100. Ryuichi can perceive that this guy's power is several times stronger than before. It seems that it won't be too boring. Ryuichi twisted his wrist, and Yada's eyes were fixed on Ryuichi's wrist. Opened his mouth and said, "From the first time you appeared in my field of vision, when you were in Shanzawa, I discovered that you have to twist your wrist every time before a fight. Is it a bondage? After twisting your wrist, although his power and curse power are not obvious, it has indeed been slightly improved. I have such a bondage too," Yada said to himself, completely ignoring the smile on Ryuichi's face. He continued. Advertisement. Human beings will become very long-winded in the future, and cursed spirit may be the same. I have lived for many years. I have seen the first time humans rise in flames, and the first time they build society. How mankind perishes in wars and desires. This kind of creature is small and weak, but why can it always survive on this land? Zenin Ryuichi looked at the existence in front of him that was called the oldest cursed spirit. A bit of pity appeared in his eyes unexpectedly. He gathered up the curse power originally exuded. Even the dark shadows under the feet converged secretly, and Dispatch of Detained Spirits slowly faded. He sat back on the rock again. The chin was pressed against the palm. You think I don't know, are you procrastinating for time? But it doesn't matter, it's the final deal anyway. I don't mind, just have a chat with a living history text. The atmosphere between the two became a little weird. Obviously it should be a mortal enemy who is constantly fighting between life and death. But, right now, one is sitting on the rock, and the other is sitting cross-legged on the ground. There is a strange harmony between the old and the young. No matter how long it has been, their desire and greed are destroying the world all the time. If you think of the earth as a huge human being. ... Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Except for the strong like you, the existence of mankind itself is the greatest malice towards this world. Our cursed spirit was born in the residuals of the evil thoughts of mankind, then you humans are the malicious gathering of the earth. Ryuichi. Let's cooperate. So the current human beings are germs that were born in humans. Even Yada said that human beings are the malicious gathering of this world, and Ryuichi deeply agrees. P.S. Keep writing. Yada looked at Ryuichi who was silent, and suddenly spoke. Humans and cursed spirit can never coexist. Let's cooperate. This world needs a complete cleansing, and you can be the god who judges everything. Destroy the surface, dig out veins, cut down forests, and pollute the ocean. Listening to Yada's words, Ryuichi twitched his head slightly. Mankind's evil thoughts about this world are absolutely beyond everything. Yada said quietly. They are eating away at this body's health all the time. Chapter 174. Advertisement. Let's cooperate. This world needs a complete cleansing, and you can be the god who judges everything. This sentence started from the moment Yada spoke it. The whole cave was instantly flooded with some unclear rules. Under those rules, it seemed to be boundlessly bound. As if as long as Ryuichi nodded his head and agreed, the world would become his plaything, letting you get what you want. Ryuichi frowned slightly. It seemed that Yada's words exceeded his expectations a bit. What are you saying? A hint of flushing appeared on Ya's face. He looked at Ryuichi, and a few gleams of gleam appeared in his lackluster eyes like the Dead Sea. I originally wanted to kill you. Your existence is the greatest threat to cursed spirit. Both the flesh and Jujutsu are standing at the apex of this world. Before those slumbers wake up, I really want to awaken you. Eliminate. But this idea changed immediately after I met you, especially after my rebirth, because I saw that in your eyes, humans and cursed spirit are the same. There is no difference. I don't know what you have experienced, but death is the best I am Jujutsu, called self-destruction. For my death, it is just a parade, and I can decide the return path of this trip at any time. In the process of death, I can see the deepest essence of a person. Yada's voice was a bit weird and blurred, as if she had seen the figure that reminded him countless times through Ryuichi. Your heart is like the sky, and all beings are the same in your eyes. They are all equal. Come on, cooperate with us. Destroy all the dregs of this world. Yada is right in Ryuichi's state of mind. Whether it's cursed spirit or human beings, whether it's curse or Jujutsu, it seems to him to be the same. In addition to what he cares about, he is more like a human being who came to the game world alone, and this world is full of NPCs. Is this your plan? Controlling human beings to a manageable number is like raising a pig. Let cursed spirit completely rule the world. With Ryuichi's mind, even if the other party revealed a little bit of trouble, he could almost get a glimpse of the whole story. No, No, Yada waved his hand quickly, as if Ryuichi had misunderstood something. What I need is an absolutely fair existence to coordinate the ratio of human beings and cursed spirit. Human beings have the living space of human beings, and cursed spirit has the way of existence of cursed spirit, and what we have to do is to make such a meaningless existence. Erasure, and you can judge all this as absolute fairness. Aren't you from the perspective of human beings, and don't consider the existence of cursed spirit, just simply arbitrate everything. Ryuichi heard Yada's words really. The corner of his mouth was slightly pursed, and he said, doing this do you any good? Benefits. Compared to humans, I have no desire for such useless things, I just want to build a perfect society. Advertisement. As Yada spoke, her tone was solemn. If Ryuichi hadn't known that he was a cursed spirit, he would probably think that this old man was a saint. It's the kind of saint who will continue to learn for the sake of the sacred and create peace for all ages. A cursed spirit can actually measure and change everything from a perspective that even humans cannot see. Ryuichi's eyes condensed, and for some reason, Yada saw an inexplicable smile in his eyes. Do you think I can become a talent arbiter? Judging the value of human beings and cursed spirit? Of course. No one but you can bear this responsibility. Are you willing? Whoops. Rumble. A gust of wind suddenly surged, and a thunder suddenly sounded in the sky. The corners of Ryuichi's mouth moved lightly, as if to say something. But under the thunder, the voice was completely covered up. However, after Ryuichi said this, Yada's eyes tightened. Black energy surges, the curse power reappears. Dot 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 dot. Click. Pung. The forest at this moment has completely lost sight of what it used to be. Countless towering trees rose from the ground. It was thrown everywhere like saplings. One after another deep pits appeared on the ground. Gojo Satoru and Lai's body clashed crazy in the air. The speed is so fast that only the two lights and shadows are constantly colliding. Bang bang bang. Shocking. At the same time, the Jujutsu division, who has mastered the unlimited technique, would be like a battle. I don't know how many people have ever imagined this problem. Some people speculate that the collision between infinity may break through the space and create a space storm. Others say that infinity versus infinity, and finite touches finite, and the level of power will erase everything around it. But, the fact is that all their guesses are wrong. When two Jujutsu divisions who have also mastered the infinite are playing against each other. Advertisement. There is no collision between the surgical styles. Because, infinite formation requires quantum-level deployment. In this process, both of them can eliminate each other's infinity. And this thing does not exist who is more proficient than anyone else. Simply put, both are expert cooks. Maybe there is a gap between the final two people's finished products, but they can add random ingredients to each other during the cooking process. I may not be as good as you in cooking, but I can make you as bad as I am. This is the relationship between the two at this moment. Two Jujutsu divisions who have mastered no lower limit. The method of decisive battle is actually hand-to-hand. Gojo Satoru's figure snapped in the air. Move between the feet. Diaresis, what's wrong? Gojo Satoru, don't you want to defeat your ancestors yourself? No lower limit technique cannot be used, and the confrontation in physical technique can't help the opponent. The physical strength of the two is almost the same, and the Jujutsu level is even harder to distinguish. Stature retreats violently. P.S. The author did his best. Ah. He was even higher than Gojo Satoru than he was harsh. The Lai's eyes rolled round and round. Single quote dot. I remember you humans, didn't you just put Changyi Shungsu on your lips, come on. Such an opportunity is not available to everyone. Even in the battle against Zenin Ryuichi, he was not as aggrieved as he is now. For the first time, a haze appeared on Gojo Satoru's face. It stabbed Gojo Satoru's heart like a dagger. Chapter 175. Advertisement. That's it. This is the first time Gojo Satoru and Lee started to speak. His voice is no longer as frivolous as it used to be, and the look on his face is also a haze that has never appeared before. With the changes in Gojo Satoru, the surrounding atmosphere began to undergo subtle changes. Looking at Gojo Satoru, who was obviously bound by himself everywhere, the Lai was actually a little wary out of thin air. Inexplicably, a trace of fear rose in his heart. This feeling is a blur that he has not seen in thousands of years. Cursed spirit, I don't know your name, but I want to ask you something. Gojo Satoru looked at his hands, palms up, and slowly raised them, as if in his hands, the whole world, but between applause. His pre-eyed look was a little bit different, nostalgic, but also a little dazed. Have you ever experienced despair? That kind, no matter how hard you try, you can never reach the height of the opponent's random appearance, as if his existence is to tell you that there is still a sky in this world. If that's the case, would you collapse because of this, and give up, and abandon your goals? Hey, I'm sorry, I forgot, you are only a heartless cursed spirit, you can only hide in the body of my ancestors in a trivial way. He chuckled lightly, and what he said made the Lai a little bit astonished. Under such circumstances, the other party actually said such inexplicable words. Lee put a finger into her mouth and took a light bite. Not in a rush to attack like Gojo Satoru. In the face of Gojo Satoru, he actually had a few cat and mouse dramas. It's like I want to see what Gojo Satoru is going to say. Gojo Satoru looked at the rising light in his hands for himself, and those 6 eyes, which were said to be hard to see in 1,000 years, began to rippling with different colors. Click. The surrounding space began to vibrate slightly, but the power that appeared out of thin air was not the infinite that Gojo Satoru showed before. It is a brand new power that is different from infinite and finite, repulsive and suction. Once this power appears, the space seems to be frozen. Lai's eyes tightened, and the hairs all over his body stood up in an instant, and he felt a trace of fear in his heart inexplicably. Advertisement. The root of that fear is the warning issued from his own curse source. Will die. I will die. Suddenly, in the heart of the lie, a voice kept reminding him that if Gojo Satoru showed his power at this moment, he would die. But a lie that should have turned around and ran away, but it seemed as if he had been nailed in the air. But the control of this tyrannical body was completely lost. Damn. What's the situation? I should have already figured out the ability of unlimited spells. What is the situation with this guy? Lai's body instinctively appeared a few tremors, and his eyes were deeply unbelievable. This terrifying power was a power that the Gojo Patriarch, who was overwhelmed by countless cursed spirits who could not breathe 1,000 years ago, had never shown. It is pure destruction. All existence in the world is in cause and effect, but the crystal that appears in Gojo Satoru's hands at this moment does not have any cause or effect. It is a simple force that can erase everything. Could this be? The Lai seemed to suddenly remember something from the depths of the memory, and the corners of his mouth suddenly twitched. Have you ever seen the real despair? Rumble. Empty. That dazzling light shrouded the world in an instant, and the crows in the sky disappeared under this day. The earth, the forest, and everything together began to sink into a world full of none. Blankness has become the only melody of everything. Tokyo. Gojo's home. You mean, Xiaowu has never shown a real talent? Patriarch Gojo's eyes widened, and he couldn't believe what he had just heard. He tightly grasped the edge of the table with his hands and leaned forward. The monkey anxiously looked at the great elder who had called him to tell such secrets. Although he is the father of Gojo Satoru, he has never understood what his son is thinking since he was a child. From the moment he was born, his name was destined to be engraved in the history of Gojo's family. It was such a child who was wrapped in honor and halo. Before he was 13 years old, he never showed the slightest smile. The existence of unlimited art has made his son the strongest in the world, but as a father, he wants to let his children get his own life from the bottom of his heart. Advertisement. But even if he tried his best, even if he quit his position as patriarch, his children would not be able to make Gojo Satoru smile. Knowing that today, he still remembers that when his child was 6 years old, he asked himself a word in an immature voice. Dad, this world is so fragile that I don't dare to punch hard. That day, he knew that his son was the god of this world. Just inadvertently revealing Jujutsu can completely destroy an entire building. But now, the elder in front of him actually tells himself that Gojo Satoru has never really shown his talent. Sit down. Such a big person is still frizzy. I almost died. In front of him, this elder who was once known as the strongest physical elder in the Gojo family's history was covered with cracks all over his body. That time, it was he who deliberately forgot his true talent. After that day, I was in retreat for 3 years, do you remember? Patriarch Gojo asked puzzledly. Obviously, people want to have their talents getting better and better, but his own son chose to forget his talents. This is what happened. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Hearing this, Patriarch Gojo remembered that after practicing for a period of time with the little enlightenment, the elder claimed that he had some enlightenment and hurriedly went into seclusion. When Xiaowu was 11 years old, I once had a confrontation with him about jujutsu. He scratched his head angrily and sat down respectfully. The elder sighed softly, took a cup of tea in his hand and took a sip. Above that crack, countless mysterious and extraordinary powers are slowly flowing. But, why? While talking, the elder opened his kimono. What? The elder's empty eyes looked at Patriarch Gojo, like a pair of invisible eyes watching his actions. Hey, Xiaowu's talent is 1 level higher than that of the ancestor. Chapter 176. Advertisement. Although the cracks are still there, but the great elder is already used to it. Uncle, what the hell is going on? Patriarch Gojo stood up abruptly. The Gojo family does not pay attention to door rules as much as the Kamo family, and does not value talents as much as the Zen Source family, but there is only one thing. The Gojo family, filial piety takes the lead. Matter, it is necessary to expel it from the portal. Sit down. How many times do I have to say this kind of thing? The head of the family is more important than Mount High, and everything in the family is between your thoughts, so anxious. If I am gone, how do you go to this family, when? The elder uttered a violent cry, causing the originally a bit angry patriarch to instantly look like a kitten, sitting down obediently. Without a pit, the old man in front of him was the one who pulled the Gojo family out of the mud. Don't blame Xiaowu, his temperament, blame me for not going to fight jujutsu in depth. The elder's eyes fell into a bit of nostalgia. The technique of no lower limit shows infinity in the hands of the ancestors. It is remembered by the times as the strongest existence in that era, and Xiao Wu has mastered the realm that the ancestors have never seen. But because that power was too strong, Xiao Wu at that time was incomprehensible, coupled with my negligence, that led to my fate today. Xiao Wu chose to set a bondage for himself because of guilt, and wait for me to go out again. At the moment, I found that he had sealed up that memory. That power is beyond the finite and infinite of constructing reality. Fantasy. Fantasy. Gojo Satoru watched the world completely plunged into a pale world, and the corners of his mouth spit out these two words. The azure blue eyes became extremely deep. He slowly raised a palm. Wow. Click. The endless paleness was constantly engulfing between his palms like a tide. In the pale, all the breath began to gradually reappear. The forest, the sky, the mountains, everything, just like the ink paintings in the hands of the painter, began to gradually appear in the pale. In a flash, the world once again returned to the way it was before. The only difference is, at this moment, the endless crows in the sky have completely disappeared. And the lie completely dissipated like the crow before Gojo Satoru got it. This world is so fragile. In Gojo Satoru's view, even if he accidentally unfolds his palms and reveals his true power, the world will reopen as if it has been reshuffled. Advertisement. Infinity and finiteness are the elements that construct this world, but what is hidden above it is nothingness that does not exist in reality, completely opposite to it. The only thing between being and nothing. The nothingness that can shatter everything. This power is called Fantasy, by Gojo Satoru. Since he was a child, he has set a bondage on himself after annihilating his most respected elder into nothingness almost instantaneously. Forget this power, and today I am facing a time when I am facing the cursed spirit who constantly uses the body of my ancestors to humiliate myself. The power hidden in the deepest part of the body broke out completely. I said, "You have never seen real despair." Gojo Satoru murmured softly. The figure slowly fell to the ground. Brother, be careful. Suddenly, before Gojo Satoru displayed Fantasy, the small burial protected with power suddenly looked at a void and shouted. Gojo Satoru instinctively looked in the direction of Xiaofu's fingers. Between palms waving, the powerful impact erupted instantly. Rumble. But this time it was not Fantasy, but Hyaku solidified the impact at one point in an instant. Thoroughly recall the talented Gojo Satoru, cast other spells with no lower limit, except for the strongest Liao, other spells can be cast almost afterwards. And there is no need for any buffer time. Click. There was an extremely strong collision in the space. There seemed to be a kind of intangible power that stopped Gojo Satoru's impact. In the void, a huge black shadow slowly emerged. Looking at this figure, Gojo Satoru's eyes narrowed slightly. An extremely familiar name appeared in his mind. Mashura. In front of him, a whole body was pitch black, the spinning turbine spinning behind him, holding a huge sword, with a few edges and corners on his face. Devilish energy bursts between the breaths. 8 swords, the gods of other worlds, Moxula. According to the legend, only the strongest god and demon surrendered by the Zenin Patriarch who died together with the Gojo Patriarch. Advertisement. Seeking flowers. Holding the sword of retreat, ignoring everything Jujutsu's strongest. Good risk, good risk. Fortunately, I have more than one piece of clothing. That familiar voice sounded again in the void. The figure that appeared in the air was a serious young man in a kimono. He seemed to be young, but he seemed to have an endless burden on his back and pressed his brows down tightly. A pair of dark black eyes, like a black hole, seems to be able to swallow everything. He stood on the shoulders of Mashuluo and wiped the non-existent sweat on his head pretendingly. It's a terrible power. If it weren't for my quick reaction, I should have disappeared like your ancestor now, but it doesn't matter. Do you want to play with your ancestor's old opponent? 0. The lie was relaxed, and his heart was indeed shaking like a drum. He was betting. He is betting that Gojo Satoru can't continuously use that kind of power against the sky. As long as he doesn't have the ability to redefine everything, he believes that with the combat power of the demon god general, he still has the capital to fight Gojo Satoru, not to mention his whole cards have not been completely opened. You are really mean. Gojo Satoru looked at the lie standing on the god general. There was deep disdain in his tone. The palm was slightly lifted. A bright moment condenses. The lie's eyes shrank suddenly. How is it possible? He actually. Fantasy. Base. Just when Gojo Satoru spit out the word fantasy, the lie was like a frightened crow, running away in a panic. After just taking a few steps, I realized that nothing happened at all. He quickly turned his head and looked at Gojo Satoru with a playful face, and instantly realized that he was being tricked. Oh, it seems that it can only be used once, but you are too courageous, oh. Gojo Satoru clapped his hands suddenly and said, I see, you are curse born out of human timidity. The voice fell. An extremely deep anger appeared in the lie's eyes. Damn. B********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************* Soil. Chapter 177. Advertisement. After a lapse of thousands of years, the undecided battle between Gojo and Zenin is about to start. The strongest god and demon, Moxula, holds the sword of retreat. He was full of demonic energy, like a terrifying demon that came out of the ancient times, and once again descended on the world. The sword of retreat, exuding bursts of terror. The power that can destroy all curse power flows continuously on the sword body. Gojo Satoru's body slowly floated in the air. In the azure blue eyes, reflected in the huge and terrifying body of Mashura. There was a smile at the corner of his mouth. The curse power all over the body, like a sea wave, emerges endlessly. Look at it, what you didn't kill, I'll kill it for you. With a younger generation like me, it must be blooming in heaven. Click. Rumble. The sword of quitting the devil swiftly swung 4-4-0, and the color between the world and the earth changed. All the causes and effects in the world seemed to have lost their meaning at this moment. The curse around it melted like snow in a furnace. Gojo Satoru's body. Countless endless flashes. The powerful repulsion and thrust burst out. Rumble. Bang bang bang. This world has been baptized by nothingness, like a new world, once again filled with two terrifying powers. A pitch black like ink, as if everything in the world would be destroyed under that power. An incomparably dazzling light is like a newborn in this big day, shining everything in this world. Click. The two forces collided madly. This battle that has cut off cause and effect for 1,000 years is fought again. At the same time, the highest point of Curse Island. Zenin Ryuichi was sitting on a rock with a hint of playful abuse at the corner of his mouth, like a god overlooking all living beings. With moon-white eyes, this kind of female worker, everything in this world is slowly turning in it, and it seems like stars are circulating, thousands of shining annihilation. What did you say? Advertisement. In front of him, Yada looked at Zenin Ryuichi incredulously, as if he had heard something incredible just now. The fingers trembled slightly. The curse power of the whole body rose rapidly like a flame, and the murderous intent in the eyes gushed out. At the last moment, Yada, who was still inviting Ryuichi to be the god who judges everything, now seems to want to tear Ryuichi to pieces. Ryuichi didn't care about what was in front of him, the attitude of this person called the oldest cursed spirit towards him. The tone is still that lazy, as if not awake. Sure enough, when you get older, your ears don't work well. Then I will say it again, I said, old man, your idea is simply too much. Madness. Ryuichi's tone continued to become cold as he said this sentence, until the end of his voice was a bit of golden and iron. The space has faintly fluctuated. Pong. Click. Rumble. There was a violent shaking in the cave. Yada stood up abruptly, and terrifying power instantly filled his body. It is a power between black and white. Gray. Different from everything in the world, the gray that erases the meaning of everything. The gray power kept circling in Yada's hands. You better give me a reason, otherwise, I can't help but kill you. Click. The moment Yada's voice fell, the tyrannical murderous aura solidified like the substance, and a black thunder suddenly exploded next to him. As if to erase everything. Explain. Ryuichi repeated what Yada had just said, and there was a hint of hostility in his brows. In that case, I will tell you clearly. Cursed spirit was born in curse, but at the root, in my eyes, it seems that there is no difference from human beings. You are just a kind of human with stronger power and purer emotions. However, as long as you are a human, you must know a truth. Human desires are like rolling rocks. Once they start, they will not stop. I believe you, who have lived for countless years, should be very clear about this. Even if according to what you said, the human and the cursed spirit are redefined, but the desire of the cursed spirit to devour humans is instinct. Why do you think the growing cursed spirits resist their instincts to interact with the ants and food in their eyes? Or is it true that two-legged sheep live in peace? Quote. As long as you open your mouth for the first time, everything will go back and forth like reincarnation. Do you think your so-called new era is not stupid enough? As for your second question, Ryuichi looked at Yada slightly lost in thought. A cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. You think you can kill me? Advertisement. Pung. Ryuichi jumped up from the rock in an instant. After an instant, he already appeared in front of Yada, staring at each other tightly. Looking at the oldest cursed spirit, a trace of blood rose in his moon-white eyes. It is like a blood moon, about to hang high. Furthermore, even if there is no question I just mentioned, I am not interested. There was no adjudicator at the time. What god? That kind of thing not only sounded boring, but also very low. If the conditions permit, I would cut off the head of the god. More interested. It is true that Ryuichi's disposition is close to the way of heaven, but when is the way of heaven not doing what he wants? In his eyes, all beings are equal, and there is another chill. That is, in front of him, all beings are ants, and in front of all this, he should do whatever he wants. Humans, cursed spirit, everything is good, nothing matters. Nothing can determine Zenin Ryuichi's behavior. There is no restriction that can define his position. Is he himself? He is Zenin Ryuichi, even if he is alone, but he only needs to stand here. This world is too small. It is caused by the nature of the heart, but by the interest. The sky is big, the earth is big. I can't beat his sentence, I'm happy. The strong should be free, and Zenin Ryuichi is the freest existence in the entire Jujutsu world. Yada's eyes were dying, looking at Zenin Ryuichi. In the palm of his hand, the grayish layer slowly appeared. It seems to bring the end of the world. You destroyed this opportunity. Then it doesn't matter. Killing all the humans is not difficult for us. When Ryuichi heard this, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The toes twitched the ground a few times. Said slowly. Oh, really, do you rely on you, or that liar, or say? Ryuichi's tone paused for a moment, and disappeared into Yada's field of vision in an instant. Rely on this big baby in this island. Chapter 178. Advertisement. Ryuichi's voice is clearly so clean and bright, but falling in Yada's ears at this moment is tantamount to a thunder in the dry land. There was a sudden explosion in his ears. How come? There are no more than 3 people who know this thing, Jedi, and those 3 old guys will never let this secret leak out. What does Zenin Ryuichi know? Even if my heart has exploded. But Yada's complexion was indeed as usual. Backquote. Come back. Looking at Ryuichi's slightly abusive eyes. The look was gloomy. What are you saying? Do you want to pretend to be stupid? That's boring enough. Boom. Between talking, Ryuichi stretched out a palm out of thin air, and the curse power of his whole body continued to fluctuate. The breath broke out instantly. Towards the wall in the cave, the bombardment except for an extremely terrifying impact. Rumble. That power engulfed a large amount of curse power, and blasted against the wall with the power like thunder. Pung. Kaka. The impact fell on this wall almost instantly. At the same time, there was a very slight tremor throughout the island. The 23 shock is very shallow. If it weren't for Ryuichi's powerful perception brought by 6 Immortal Thief Treasury, it would even be completely undetectable. But just with this tremor. However, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, while Yada's face was completely dark. You shouldn't have to die, really. Yada's voice was like the Dead Sea, as if to pull everything into the chapter of death. But, you will be eliminated by me after all, won't you? Base. The silhouettes of the 2 disappeared in the same place instantly. The tyrannical forces kept colliding in midair. Countless thunder exploded in the void. It seems that the space in the cave is too narrow to stretch out. Almost both of them were in the air, and they slammed their feet. It burst out of the cave like 2 meteors. The stature is erratic. Appeared above the infinite firmament. Now, the sky, which was originally a clear sky, was deeply hidden by a layer of dark clouds. In the cloud and mist, there is a continuous electric arc flashing. The tyrannical breath broke out in an instant. Between heaven and earth. Advertisement. It seems that there is a hint of big day. Close black lens bracket. A round of dead gray open black lens bracket big day close black lens bracket. Behind Yada, this round of great sun hung high in the sky with the power to make all living creatures destroy themselves. It's like an eternal demon god. On his body, the gray aura with the power of death, like a venomous snake, constantly surrounds him. As his breath changes, like, even these heavens will be pulled into the abyss by him. Zenin Ryuichi, in thousands of years, you are the second human being to see me in this posture. Even death is enough to make you proud. I will grant you death. In the name of End Yan. Abyss destroy the spirit body. Base. Rumble. Yada's voice fell, and the big day of endless death represented behind the wheel, slowly sinking into his body. The surface of his body seemed to be wearing a layer of armor. The body that used to love to laugh is constantly becoming taller. The gray scales clung to him. On the head, a pair of horns gradually emerged. His face was covered by a gray skull mask. Sickness filled the sky, death filled the sky. It is like a demon coming out of the abyss. Move the palms gently between. There was a bit of overwhelmed grief in the space. Before he exerted his strength, he resolutely showed an unattainable power. Die. It's the end of everything. Looking at Yada who looked like a demon in front of him. Ryuichi's expression is still so lazy. It seems that this demon who can pull everything into the abyss can't attract his attention. Ha! He yawned greatly, raised a hand, and rubbed his eyes, as if he appeared a little tired. Originally, there are still things that I want to verify from you, but now it seems that when you are fighting, you should ask all the questions. Hehe, do you think you still have a chance? Human. Yada's voice seemed to be repeated by countless hell-hungry ghosts, with various accents, constantly resounding in Ryuichi's mind. Ha ha ha, this question, I want to ask you too, do you think you still have a chance? Cursed spirit. I have a second friend who often says something on his lips. Although I feel a little ashamed every time, I never get together and feel that he is wrong. Tell you a secret, I am invincible. Buzzing. As the voice fell, a blue light appeared out of thin air under Ryuichi's feet. Tai Chi, 4 elephants, and gossip all emerged one after another. It seems that all the mysteries in the world are in it. Who is the king when the odd door is open? I take it for myself. The odd gate was instantly shrouded in a field of tens of meters in midair. A trace of badness suddenly rose in Yada's heart. His instinct told himself again that once he stepped into it, there would be very unfavorable consequences. Advertisement. Pung. Among the gray scattered, his figure has already retreated dozens of meters in the air. Perception is good, but still not sharp enough. Ryuichi looked at Yada, who had suddenly retreated, and raised two fingers at random, flicking between them. Bang bang bang. Several bursts of air sounded. Countless cursed tools are like the rain of death, and I don't know when they are all over Yada's back. Seng seng seng. The cursed tool that obscured the sky and sun fell instantly. But Yada did not evade. Between the arms spread out, the breath changes. The gray silence of death is clearly unleashed. Wow. Hoo hoo hoo. At the moment the gray spread, the countless first-level cursed tools all lost their luster. Constantly falling. This method is far from it. Yada shouted, spreading his hands behind him. The gray color of death continued to condense in his hands and turned into two extremely devastating shocks. Throw it towards Ryuichi. Pung. Rumble. Those two powers are like Ryuichi, roaring and wanting to swallow everything. Empty. Empty. Roar. Faced with two attacks from the carrier's endless aura of destruction. Ryuichi's complexion was as usual, pinching with one hand. There was a flash of light in his eyes. Dry word return. The tip of his finger. A semi-transparent energy round mirror appeared instantly. Base. Change. The two powers sank into the mirror the moment they touched it. Next moment. Roaring again, he flew out of the mirror on the tip of Ryuichi's hand with greater strength. Toward Yada. Kill. Humph. Yada snorted coldly, his eyes flickering. In an instant, those two dead dragons flew into ashes and annihilated. But, suddenly, his eyes narrowed suddenly, as if he had sensed some danger. Chapter 179. Advertisement. Yada was born out of mankind's fear of suicide. There is an extremely keen sense of any threat to life. In this world, there are no more than a handful of people who have made him feel this threat. But those guys are already dead, dead ahead of him. Zenin Ryuichi. You are dangerous. His eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a few dangerous rays. Seeing Zenin Ryuichi's figure floating in the air, the corners of his mouth twitched. Oh, actually, I just wanted to be the owner of the house of everything quietly, find a few reliable and cost-saving employees, receive some commissions that are fairly well paid, and spend myself close to infinity in this huge amusement park. Life. But you guys, it's really worrying. Why is it important to give me some trouble? I said it. I don't like trouble. My warning, what are you taking? Ryuichi's voice became colder and colder. The heavy killing intent has brought this world back to the ancient and solemn warring states. Period 1. The corpse mountain and the sea of blood, the rain of blood drifts. Base. Ryuichi slowly raised his left hand. The breath of the whole body erupted like a mountain torrent. The odd door game turned quickly. Vaguely. It seems that the world is rippling in it. Heaven and earth are mysterious and yellow, and the universe is wild. Within the strange door, turn me into a king. Hyonzi world subversion. Rumble. Ryuichi's palm opened suddenly. The power of horror burst out instantly. A force that seemed to be able to drown everything in this world quickly rushed out. Empty. Empty. An impact-like substance, across the void. Click. Numerous cracks appeared in the space. The impact was getting bigger and bigger in the process of killing Yada. In the end, it was like a tsunami, covering the sky and the earth. It's like the end is coming. Yada looked at such a terrifying impact. The gray lifelessness shook his whole body. Above the armor. The abyss condenses. From the moment you rejected me, you were just an ordinary person, tremble in front of me. Death Kingdom. Rumble. Yada's mouth opened in an exaggerated arc. Advertisement. A faint silence condensed in his mouth. Next moment, the dead silence began to expand infinitely. Finally, a terrifying shock that is no weaker than Ryuichi's subversion of heaven and earth. Carrying the power to pull everything into the abyss. Bombarded. Empty. Empty. Click. Two shocks of horror were intertwined with crazy ears in the air. Two completely different forces. They rushed to each other. Above the sky, everything seemed to be trapped in some kind of reincarnation. The aftermath of the impact scattered all the deep forests on the ground. And little by little overflowing shock. It's like being secretly hidden by some invisible force. The two shocks were compressed into a black spot almost at the same time. Disappeared in the void. Only the space-like broken glass was left, expressing what happened just now. Your reaction is slow. At the moment of impact and loneliness. Yada's ear. Ryuichi's slightly murderous voice sounded slowly. Li Zi red lotus bursts. Kanzi Fengwu. In front of Yada's eyes. A fist with endless flames and death storms suddenly fell against his head. Under this punch, the air was drained instantly. Moment. There was a vacuum except for a moment. And in this vacuum, the speed of Ryuichi's punch increased in vain. Pung. This fist hammered heavily on Yada's skull mask. Between the dead gray ripples. The mask was almost broken. Let me think about it. What should I ask first? That's right, let's talk about the eternal life first. Having said that, the uppercut blasted out directly, hitting Yada's chin, who had not yet reacted to the punch just now. Empty. The powerful force hit Yada's body, blasting out a roar like a drum. Start now. Advertisement. I control the rhythm, cursed spirit. Ryuichi was able to perceive that the cursed spirits in his dispatch of detained spirits were suppressed by Yada's curse level, and it made no sense to rush out. So Feng Chi Men cooperates with the powerful body brought by 6 Immortal Thief Treasury. Combine it with the power of fusion obtained from Fei Lian. Ryuichi at this moment is like a fighter machine that perfectly integrates mystery and physical skills. Every blow carries the mighty power of the strange door, and every punch is mixed with pure power. From the moment the impact started, he had already touched Yada in front of Yada using the blind spot of vision created by the impact. Just get into the rhythm of Ryuichi's battle. Even if there were so-called gods in this world, he was confident and twisted his head alive. Bang bang bang. The full sky fist shadow fell on Yada's body mercilessly. His body is like a dead leaf in the heavy rain, constantly falling. The breath began to wilt. Diaresis can't get out, can't do this anymore. There is incomprehensible power in his fist, and if he is bombarded like this body will collapse. Zenin Ryuichi, you forced me. A trace of madness flashed through Yada's eyes. Ryuichi let out a puzzled, Intuition tells him that a deadly threat is about to happen at this moment. Slightly slow in the hands, and quickly pinch the tactics with one hand. Stature retreats violently. The mind can travel through time and space infinitely in the strange gate at will. But even at the moment of crossing the dimension of space, that sense of threat has never been eliminated. Yada will be nearly bombarded by Ryuichi to the twisted neck, breaking it with the palm of his hand a little bit. The dead silence on his body seemed to be slightly convergent. Haha, the agreement we reached with those ignorant humans grants them immortality, but we didn't say how to use it. His body gradually began to wither, and his armor slowly fell into his body. But inexplicable, a more terrifying field of anger rose from his body. If Yada before it was a messenger who pulled the world into the abyss, it was a messenger who sent death to mankind. So now, he is death itself. Create represents the most primitive fear of mankind. Death is the biggest curse in the world. Talking about how to look down on humans, the result is the strongest posture, but it is still infinitely close to the human form. You are really a double standard. Ryuichi's eyes were fixed on Yada, and his tone was still so frivolous. It seemed that even if the sun and the moon were subverted in front of him, he couldn't make this man's mind rippling in the slightest. Ha ha ha, Ryuichi, I changed my mind. I want you to repeat life and death on this curse island like those ignorant humans. Forever. Forever. Chapter 180. Advertisement. Yada's voice became extremely mad, just like the last wailing of this human being when he was dying. Death is where everything belongs. It is also an eternal topic in this world. No creature can guarantee the peace of the past when facing death. Those beautiful will be ugly with the passing away, those in love will be eternal with death. And those who are reluctant will become extremely crazy because of the coming of death, and even give everything to seek eternal life and avoid death. The essence of death is the end of everything. 2. Crazy start. Countdown to death. Start. Buzzing. Above the sky, a huge clock appeared out of thin air. Hanging upside down in the sky. Clang, 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 clang. Every pendulum of the clock carried countless sadness. Ryuichi can clearly see that the numbers on the clock are hanging. 6 is on the top, 12 is on the bottom. The flow of life is a reincarnation from nothing to nothing. Under my jujutsu, the creatures affected by the countdown to death will completely walk through the entire course of life after the countdown of the clock ends. That is to kill. Yada stretched out his hands triumphantly, as if Ryuichi in front of him seemed certain to die. There is no longer the indifference of Zungjin on his face, instead an endless madness. That is the manifestation of him getting closer to the origin of death. Clang clang, clang clang. The pendulum of the big clock was constantly swinging. A shadow called death seems to want to drown everything. The gray smoke gradually swallowed the entire sky. In the endless silence, the light of Feng Chi Men became the only light in the abyss. Is it like a lighthouse in the dark, although not bright? But, it's the only one. The odd door began to spin frantically. Advertisement. Ryuichi is also rare and appears a little cautious. He knows through the feedback from the odd door game. The huge clock in front of me, the jujutsu triggered by it, is interfering with cause and effect. That is a force that directly cuts off the physical level and hits the root cause. Once the root cause is erased, it is equivalent to erasing the handwriting on the canvas. Completely lost traces in this world. But, looking at Yada triumphantly, the corner of Ryuichi's mouth quickly flashed with contempt. Covering the change of Jotien, turning me into a king, Jotien leads the sky and becomes a world of its own. Among the odd gates, the odd gate has its own unique time and space, all of which are controlled by the master of the odd gate, Zenin Ryuichi. In other words, unless the big clock of Yada is activated in the Kimen, according to the rules of another world, trying to obliterate Ryuichi in the Kimen is simply dreaming. But then again, even if Yada started the big clock in the odd door game, the scene is estimated to be even more comical than it is now. Because as the master of the odd gate, Ryuichi only needs to erase the odd gate and let Yada's big clock dissipate along with the odd gate. Yada at this time hadn't realized it yet. The cautious young man in front of me is actually well deserved. Natural enemies. Ha ha ha. Zenin Ryuichi, die in despair. But fortunately, I can make you understand that the so-called eternal life is the ignorance of your humans. Even with this curse island, it is the greed of you humans. For thousands of years, the truth about evil thoughts and greed of mankind and cursed spirit will soon surface. In the interior of Kimen, Ryuichi can only glimpse the causal fragments of this matter. But what I didn't expect was, the truth of this incident is far more disgusting than Ryuichi imagined. Even with his Shinshing, among those white eyes, a killing intent called disgust appeared for the first time. In the sky, death erodes everything, and the sound is restrained. A black-clothed boy stared closely at the scene on the sky. Clenched fists with both hands, and the blue veins on the back of his hands violently. On the forehead, blood surged. He looked at the sky above the battlefield that looked like the gods, and his eyes were full of unwillingness. Am I really this far? Zenin's teeth clenched tightly, the curse power surging wildly throughout his body. He is very strong, even stronger than the young master of the Kamo family. But, advertisement. It is precisely because of his strength that he knows better that Zenin Ryuichi is standing on the dome at this moment. How unattainable. That's a kind of power that you may need that you can't catch up in your whole life. The stronger the person, the brighter the heart. Only at this moment did he know why the elders in the family value it so much. He saw this renegade and disdainful fellow in the Zenin family. Zenin Ryuichi. He looked closely at the sky, Ryuichi who was constantly shrouded in silence. An idea arose in my mind inexplicably. If he dies, the head of the patriarch, is it mine? Yeah, why should I help him? If he is dead, patriarch is mine. That should have been my position. I am the one who is most qualified to be the next generation patriarch of the Zenin family. Why don't I even have the qualifications to pull out this cursed tool? Old stuff, I just want to pull it out. Zenin Genma looked at the black long knife at his waist like crazy. The admonition of the family elder turned into a sneer in his ears. Don't pull out that knife, you will die. Give the knife to Zenin Ryuichi, you don't need to do the rest. If necessary, die for him. Zenin Town Demon's eyes became more and more scarlet, and bloodshots kept climbing on his eyes. Don't look down on people. I'm really Zenin. His hand quickly grabbed the hilt of the knife around his waist. But the next moment, a gleam of light flashed across those scarlet eyes. Base. He is like a black thunder. The palm of his hand turned sharply, and he buckled it toward the deep forest behind him. Null. Rumble. All of them collapsed in the deep forest. Among the trees flying across, a crimson little demon was firmly grasped by Zenin Genma. Impossible. After being controlled by my jujutsu, your jealousy will be infinitely expanded. How could it be possible, please? Is the red cursed spirit yelling in horror, twisting all over, trying to break free from Zenin's hands. But Zenin Genma's palm was stuck on his neck like a vice. Chapter 181. Advertisement. There was a weird power in the palm of his hand, which made the Scarlet Imp's curse power unable to condense. Ashamed to say, I am really jealous and crazy. Why can that guy hold everything in his hands lightly? Why can he treat the strongest forces in the world as air? My whole life's hard work, in his opinion, is just a boring position. If possible, I hope there has never been a person like Zenin Ryuichi in this world. Zenin Genma's voice was very deep, and his tone was also full of murderous intent. In his eyes, the scarlet that represents jealousy was still burning. But what made the Scarlet Kid unable to understand was how this man resisted the power that hit his own heart. You want him to die, it's very simple. Just wait, the oldest cursed spirit, Yada will definitely kill Zenin Ryuichi. Then maybe we can cooperate. Yes. We can also cooperate. The Scarlet Kid said hurriedly. He felt that the power in his body was constantly passing away, and all the curse power in the palm of this man would be disintegrated. He will die. No, he won't. He is Zenin Ryuichi. Rumble. Click. An explosion erupted from Zenin Genma's hand. In an instant, the little devil who was still talking in Rory just now was blown to pieces. What you don't understand, how can you understand without the dregs of human identity? How to write the word honor. Click. Zenin Genma's aftermath swept through the scarlet eyes that kept appearing in all directions. In the darkness, those greedy eyes stared at his body firmly. He held the scabbard around his waist. The corners of the mouth rose slightly. Miscellaneous. It is your honor to die in the hands of this uncle. Lao Su is the strongest man in the future of big three sorcerer families. Zenin real motorcycle. Zenmo, the true word means, and the word touches the heart. Good kill. Hey, did you see it? That guy is from your family, do you believe that the shards in your eyes can tear him apart? Advertisement. Yada above the sky noticed Zenin's figure in the forest. He stretched out a finger and pointed at him, looking at Ryuichi with a bit of sarcasm. But unfortunately, even if you want to save him, you have no chance. Let me tell you how dirty human beings are. Yada's was in the air, slowly cross-legged, floating in the air. There was a hint of memory in his eyes. Endless silence lingers in the air. The clock of death keeps ringing. Clang clang, clang clang. Thousands of years ago, with the help of a guy, you humans sealed almost all of our brothers in the door, and my eldest brother, although not sealed, also hurt Curse's roots and fell asleep. Imagine that the cursed spirit was also severely injured by another group of humans, recluding and healing. Did I think that the era of cursed spirit is already lonely, but what I didn't expect is that human desire and greed can reach this level. 3 old guys who are about to live have found me, as I prayed for the power to save death, and as a price, they are willing to give me the flesh and blood of the baby. Ha ha ha, you heard me right. Those heroes who asked for the shadow of cursed spirit to make mankind, for their own lives, willingly handed over the lives of those babies to me. Ryuichi listened to all this blankly. In the pair of moon-white eyes, a deep scarlet was constantly surging. It was as if a blood moon was about to hang in the air. Eternal night is coming. Yadas did not notice any changes in Ryuichi. It's like being immersed in memories. A pipe appeared in his hand. He took a cigarette and continued. The 3 old guys want to avoid death. Of course I can satisfy them, but the price is that they will be wrapped in the flesh and blood of their most despised cursed spirit forever, combined with those they think dirty cursed together. Even if it is death, it will continue to rebirth. What I didn't expect was that apart from the 3 of them, more and more old guys found me and even gave me door to fabricate the so-called Curse Island. Unexpectedly, their lies made the world today. Countless jujutsu teachers came here to seek the door, and the price is to lose their lives. Seeking flowers. Advertisement. Oh, by the way, occasionally there are a few guys who walk out of Curse Island and bring back door. After all, Big Brother is about to recover. The moment he comes, the world will be shuffled again. Yada took another puff of smoke, as if choked, and coughed a few times. As for the baby you just mentioned, you feel very keen. Under this Curse Island, the resentment of countless jujutsu teachers for thousands of years, countless resentment of jujutsu, and the resentment of the human beings who were sacrificed are all condensed in it. His potential even surpasses me. As long as he can hatch from the cursed fetus. Then maybe, our plan can be completed before Big Brother wakes up. Quote. At this time, Ryuichi, who hadn't spoken for a long time, suddenly said, the eldest brother in your mouth, who is it, and is their curse who is beyond death? Hee, I am not dead, I am self-destructing, and there is a deeper nightmare above death. However, it has nothing to do with you. The time has come, Zenin Ryuichi, when the new world comes, I will send paper money in accordance with your human customs. Yada stood up abruptly. Raising the palm of his hand, he snapped his fingers crisply. Click. The pendulum of the clock stopped abruptly. Although, the hour and second hands began to slide directly to the end. The haze of death began to spread at an extremely fast speed. Yada lowered his head. It seemed to have seen Ryuichi wiped out in the despair of death. He looked at the Immortal who was constantly killed by Zenin Mamo on the ground, and raised a finger. A faint light of death continued to condense on the tip of his hand. It seems that everything will run through in the next moment. Humans, every time you enter this state, I feel that you are very an eyesore. Oh, to be honest, your attitude is quite irritating to me. What? A very familiar voice suddenly sounded in Yada's ear again, his eyes shrank suddenly, and his eyes were deeply shocked. Chapter 182. Advertisement. Ryuichi's nightmare-like voice rang in Yada's ear again. He couldn't believe that his death timing would actually be cracked. That is the powerful jujutsu that I sacrificed the domain in exchange for. Everything in this world is following a principle. Gains and losses. Whatever you gain, you must lose something. This is the so-called bondage. Yada's jujutsu directly acts on cause and effect, and can be called a bug-level jujutsu. Its horror and tyrannical degree are far more perverted than Gojo Satoru in a certain sense. Jujutsu of this level has exceeded the ability of this world. Once the death clock begins to count down. Basically, death will be an irreversible and unstoppable process. It is the so-called kill. And the price he paid for it was. His domain was permanently banned with the existence of his jujutsu. The mortal in exchange for the inability to use the domain, at this moment, was so understated that it was cracked. Presumably everyone will be unacceptable for a while. If it's not Zenin Ryuichi. It can be said, Yada's jujutsu is almost unsolvable, but Feng Men, a world of its own, is his jujutsu, a natural enemy. Your story is wonderful, but I have heard enough. Boom. Ryuichi's punch hit Yada's stomach directly. The power of terror engulfed the power of the strange door. A huge hole was torn out of Yada's stomach in an instant. Cracks in his body continued to rise. Yada's face became extremely gloomy, and there was a bit of resentment in the eyes looking at Ryuichi. Don't forget, I am immortal. Immediately, I will recover again with a brand new attitude. At that time, what are you doing to stop me? I have countless opportunities, and you, only once. Yada's voice became more and more piercing. Ryuichi's eyes became more and more playful. I'm not dead. You lie to the kid, you won't be able to use it for the second time with me. With 2 lives, you can resurrect at most twice. The first time was calm, and the second time was madness. This is the deeper meaning of death, and it is also in line with your curse origin. There are two more at most, and two more. Death is only left, empty shell, close black lens bracket what? Advertisement. As Ryuichi's voice fell, Yada's eyes were filled with unspeakable shock. How did he know? This secret has never been known. Don't panic. It's okay. My posture will be stronger next time. He will definitely not be my opponent. Wow. In the panic, Yada's second life also completely collapsed. Between bursts of breath leaking out, the silence in the air flows slowly. Ryuichi's eyes were extremely hard to detect anger. This is the first time he has such emotions since he was in this world. It is true that the nature is free and easy, even if the heaven is ruthless. But after hearing the disgusting story in Yada's mouth, he still felt angry. Tomorrow, I will know that behind human nature is a white cloud dog. But he was still angry about it. In other words, at this moment, Ryuichi saw the scum in his previous life who defeated the glory of his ancestors. Heaven is the public, and thunder is already angry. What's more, Ryuichi is already in this vortex. Actually, you still have many lives. It doesn't matter to me. As many times as you can resurrect, I can kill you as many times as you feel fear because of the existence of life. Just as Ryuichi murmured, a stream of light suddenly threw from above the ground towards Ryuichi. The speed is so fast that there are many phantoms. Ryuichi grabbed the flying black long knife. He looked at Zenin on the ground. At this time, Zenin Genma was sitting on a hill made up of the corpses of the Immortal. Looking at Ryuichi bloodstained, he wiped the blood on the corners of his mouth. Shouted loudly, "That knife was left to you by your father. Now I will give it back to you. The name of the sword, one sword in 2 days. It is the first swordsman of Fuso, the thing that Miyamoto Musashi transformed into after his death, the super cursed tool. One cut in 2 days. His voice came out. It just stopped Ryuichi's idea of throwing this long knife away. After crossing over, the memory of his cheap father only stayed at the age of 5. The thin man who looks like a scholar, always carries a dirty-looking black knife in his hand. He has a poor drinking capacity, but he has to be drunk and drunk like those rangers, and then he begged his wife for mercy in a spineless manner. Ryuichi can't remember the faces of his parents very well. Only after starting this black knife. Advertisement. Only then did I slowly remember the memories sealed in my heart. Click. Whoops. This time countless black clouds gathered in the air. Yada's form continued to condense in the dark clouds. His breath became even more erratic. It's hard to catch like a ghost. Zenin Ryuichi, even if you know what the truth is, every time I am resurrected, my power will far exceed the last time. Why do you and me, one cut in 2 days? Before he could finish his words, his eyes saw the black long knife in Ryuichi's hand, and his voice suddenly became extremely sharp. However, Ryuichi judged the current stage except for him through his shout. The first death was feeble and different, and the second death was madness. And the third time, it was an impending collapse. Miyamoto Musashi, you fellow. Why even if I die, I still have to come out and interfere with me? Ah. Lies madly raised the sky and howled. Moment. With him as the center, the terrifying sound wave that erupted, even the dark cloud covering everything in the sky, was torn every inch. His breath became elusive, like a mentally disordered patient. Seeing Yada's reaction to this long knife so extreme, Ryuichi took advantage of the situation and grabbed the hilt of the knife. The long knife was pulled out of the scabbard abruptly. Bass. Buzzing. When the sound of sword ming sounded, the entire Curse Island seemed to be trembling about it. In the sky, the clouds shattered, the sun emerged, and the black knife seemed to emit endless light under the blazing sun. When the long knife was unsheathed, the scabbard broke every inch, turning into a cloud of anger and falling on the hilt, condensing into a blue gemstone. Ryuichi, who holds the divine armament 100 refinements, instantly completely controlled the extraordinary long knife in his hand. In my mind, the message of this knife appeared quickly. With one sword in 2 days, Miyamoto Musashi, the strongest swordsman, was transformed into a mortal body and a god. The only curse, the ghost and god do not exist. No power can be resurrected. Chapter 183. Advertisement. Fuso Sengoku. 1000-year bloody battle, cursed spirit. In that chaotic era, all jujutsu teachers could only grope about jujutsu's usage with difficulty. Cursed spirit claims to be a god of cholera and everything in the world. Suddenly, the people are not living, and there are bones everywhere. In the eyes of cursed spirit, the jujutsu teacher at that time was just a bunch of more delicious snacks. But even in the most difficult times, there are still human beings who make this world tremble. The strongest swordsman in the world, Miyamoto Musashi. As immortal, he has no curse power, but he is indeed the first holder of heavenly restriction in this world. Even his strength is far greater than today's strongest body, Zenin Sheer. There are countless cursed spirits in the world, and the world's filth is wiped out wherever the sword passes. In that extremely dark era, with one sword per person, the name Miyamoto Musashi became the last refuge of mankind. At the end of the years, Miyamoto Musashi was alone, supporting the old man's body and carrying the long knife that had been stained with some rust. Entered into the canyon that the world called the Abyss. Master Jujutsu can only guard the edge of the canyon, tremblingly watching the blood of the cursed spirit splashing continuously in the sky, the cursed power that has collapsed. Kill the god with the body of Immortal, so far alone. When all the fog of the abyss clears, Master Jujutsu walked into the Forbidden Gorge. What he saw was, the generally pitch-black long knife stands in the middle of the canyon. The blade does not move, killing intent is all over the sky. The sky has no eyes, I should be the sky, and the world is unfair. This knife is one cut in 2 days. In front of Ryuichi's eyes. A sloppy uncle with a goatee, holding a couple of turbid wine in his hand, danglingly lay on a hill where the corpses of countless cursed spirits were piled up. He pours the wine into his mouth with guts, the wine stains on his clothes, he squinted, and his eyes seemed muddy and muddy. You, not bad. Miyamoto Musashi looked at Ryuichi as if cutting through countless time and space. There was an inexplicable smile at the corner of his mouth. Pung. Everything disappeared like bubbles. What Ryuichi heard was Yada's frantic roar. His brows frowned slightly, and a trace of impatience appeared in his eyes. Advertisement. Base. To shut up. 2 days, one cut across the air, instantly. A huge half-moon slash burst out of the sky. Under the light of the knife, the space was rippling, and the clouds were shattered. Even the big sun hanging high in the sky lost its original light. Under this knife, it seems that the world is too small. Click. When the space bursts, everything is like a broken mirror. Yada didn't even have time to react, and Dao Ying had already passed his body. Click. ZZZ. On his body, the gray lifeless chi kept trying to get that sword chi out of his body, but he was still unable to succeed. That Jian chi did not tear his body apart as expected. But the horror brought to Yada is indeed even stronger. Because he knows. The skill that Ryuichi wielded, the Nidaniki sword, does not affect the body, but directly affects curse. His curse had already stagnated a bit at this moment. The breath has become extremely sluggish. And there is one more dangerous thing, that is. Second kill. Ryuichi is holding the Urtiani knife, as if this knife should be held in his hand by nature. The most important and strongest ability of Yidianidao is that when facing the cursed spirit, every attack he makes may directly smash the curse origin of the cursed spirit. For the cursed spirit, it is a trivial matter to be cut off, but once the roots of curse are shattered, then it is the real death. And with one sword in 2 days, every attack directly affects the origin of this cursed spirit. Can be called the nemesis of all cursed spirit. This is why Yada reacted so drastically after seeing the cut in 2 days. In the midair, Ryuichi danced out a sword flower randomly, and in the shadow of the sword, he saw the deep fear in Yada's eyes. Next, let me start the next game. Ryuichi's eyes have completely turned into a blood moon at this moment. The black knife in his hand exudes a stronger suffocation. The sword made by the strongest swordsman of the millennium and the most free spirit of the millennium are constantly fused together. One sword flow in 2 days, extinction. Base. Ryuichi held the knife in the void in his hand, made a gesture of drawing the knife, and instantly swung the black knife out. The knife's shadow flashed crazily in the space in an instant. Advertisement. 1,000 blows, 1,000 blows. Buzzing. The terrifying slash broke through the layers of space and went straight to Yada to kill. The fear that shrouded in Yada's heart 1,000 years ago echoed again. He was in the abyss that day, and he watched the old and dizzy Miyamoto Musashi, swinging the rusty long knife, turning his countless companions into flying. Finally, Miyamoto Musashi, who could no longer see the way, walked in front of Yada, holding up the long sword in his hand. Yada, who was already waiting for death, did not wait for the sword to fall. Because the person who wielded the knife has passed away. The strongest sword, undefeated in his life, but still lost to time in the end. Zenin Ryuichi. Miyamoto Musashi. He began to run away frantically. The figure is like a nightmare while galloping, so fast that almost only a small black spot can be seen. But Ryuichi seemed like Yada, who didn't care about running away. The corners of the mouth are slightly pursed. In the second day, a sword slowly stood behind him, and bursts of curse power emerged in the void, turning into a pitch-black scabbard. He looked at the direction Yada had just fled, and a trace of contempt flashed in his eyes. Said a word softly. Exit. Deep in the forest. Moxula, who was in control of the lie, constantly waved the sword of retreat in his hand to kill Gojo Satoru. But I have completely thought of Gojo Satoru, who is his own talent. The mastery of unlimited surgery has reached a higher level. Mushiluo couldn't touch one of his hairs until now. Without that body, it would be too troublesome to fight against the unlimited surgery. Lai's eyes narrowed slightly. Seeing Gojo Satoru's light and breezy look, I only felt unhappy for a while. Quickly seal the palm of your hand. On the ground. A dozen white and black jade wolves suddenly appeared. Go mad at the brother Gojo Satoru, who is hiding behind the tree. But it hasn't taken a few steps yet. Those jade wolves fell to the ground convulsively as if they were restrained by some force. Turned into a pool of curse power. Disappeared in the shadows. Well, you are also a special grade, not just a boarding bug. Gojo Satoru looked at the lie with a smile, with some mockery in his tone. Chapter 184. Advertisement. Haha. Gojo Satoru, I admit that I underestimated you, but do you really think you can defeat me? Do you know how long I have lived and what have I seen? No matter how talented you are, in my opinion, you are just a little boy. Lai's face gradually became gloomy, and Mushiro seemed to feel his master's anger under him. There was a deafening roar. Roar. Ouch. Click. Suddenly, countless black thunders surged and cracks appeared in the space. Gojo Satoru shows that the clouds are light and windy. In fact, he felt a bit tricky for the monster in front of him. Be able to become the strongest jujutsu of the Zenyuan family among the big three sorcerer families. The power of Mashuluo is undeniable, and the terrifying sword of retreat can be aimed at all jujutsu. The tyrannical vitality, the terrifying power that can break through the earth, but these are not Moxula's strongest powers. The real horror lies in him. Absolutely adapt. Any attack, if it can't directly obliterate Mashuluo. Then the next time, the same attack will be adapted by his body, so he can't cause harm to it. I am not interested in the age of an old monster, not to mention that a friend of mine mentioned you to me not long ago. Oh, by the way, there is something I almost forgot. Gojo Satoru rubbed his head with some embarrassment. Looking at the lie, he said in a rather sorry tone. You should be called a lie, right? When my friend asked me to meet you, he helped me convey a word to you. Gojo Satoru's tone changed suddenly. The expression on his face immediately turned into a smile. I will get rid of you by myself. Lies. There was a few indescribable killing intent in the voice. It was as if a god of death was about to break the dust. Lai's eyes shrank sharply. A name blurted out almost without thinking. Zenin Ryuichi. Ha ha ha. Hearing what Gojo Satoru said, he lied and laughed. Looking at the boy in front of him with a grim expression, he said viciously. None of you can run away, you will die here. Rumble. As soon as his voice fell, only a loud noise came from the sky. Lie. Yada's heart-piercing roar reached the liar's ears. Advertisement. He suddenly looked up. I only saw that the high above Yada, at this moment, fleeing in the air like a bereaved dog. Shocking. In midair, a pitch-black slash appeared. It seems to be able to wipe out everything between death. That is, one cut in 2 days. The reaction of the lie was almost the same as Yada just now. It can be seen in their hearts how terrifying the reputation of the 2-day sword. How could it be possible? That knife has obviously fallen into dust. The lie is correct, since the 2-day sword was sheathed many years ago, so far no one has been able to make this legendary sword that will destroy everything see the sky again. But now, the gall-brained sword that killed all cursed spirit appeared before the lie again. How can he not panic? Lie. The guy Ryuichi. Hung. Rumble. I haven't waited for the lie to finish. An indifferent voice sounded like a heavenly way, resounding abruptly in everyone's hearts. The sound was not loud, but even if it was as strong as Yada, it was uncontrollable and moved by fear. Exit. Hung. Rumble. A strong explosion blasted from Yada's body. That power seemed to come from the origin of the soul, from the root of Yada's curse, completely detonated. Yada. Lai exclaimed. He knew Yada's strength, and he would be forced to look like this by Ryuichi. This was something Lai hadn't expected. Click. Yada's body fell downward from the air. Like a sparrow that has lost its vitality. With a sound of pung, it hit the ground fiercely. It looks like your buddy can't stand it anymore. Gojo Satoru shrugged casually. Continue to say, but, my buddy is here. The voice just fell. A gloomy light surged behind Gojo Satoru. Wandering. Advertisement. When the space was rippling, a young man dressed in white, holding a dark long sword in his hand, slowly walked out of the void.
How is it? Is it troublesome? Ryuichi glanced at Gojo Satoru next to him, and felt that this guy's breath was several times stronger than before, and he knew that his monster-like friend had improved a lot in the battle. Trouble is not troublesome, but... Gojo Satoru paused, and put Ryuichi's shoulders on his shoulders, pursing his lips in an unremarkable manner. Diaresis, it is a very troublesome thing to hold back not to kill this guy and leave him to you. If you don't ask me to eat the big cheesecake, this matter can be solved.
It's easy to say. When I eat you, I feel like vomiting when I see the cake. Ryuichi gave Gojo Satoru a blank look and said helplessly. Crunch. Click. There was a strange noise on the ground, and Yada, who had fallen on the ground, stood up again. He shook his head as if a little dizzy. Where is this? Yada's voice became as thorough as a mountain spring. The weird and evil dead silence on his body also disappeared. The expression is also childlike innocent. But I don't know why. Seeing Yada's change at this moment, his light expression relaxed. He actually sat directly on Mashuluo's shoulders. Like a sliding slide, following Mashuluo's arm, he slid directly to the ground. Last time I saw you in this posture, Lise, I don't know how long it has been, but this time you actually took the initiative to switch to this stage. It seems that the pressure on us in 2 days is too much. Lying at Yada, who was like a child, her voice became a little soft. Yada ignored the lies around him. Biting his finger, he stared at Gojo Satoru and Zenin Ryuichi in front of him. As if thinking about something. Then suddenly put his hands together. As if thinking of something. I remember, I want to. I want more. I want to kill you. Rub. The voice hasn't settled yet. There was a scream, and there was a terrifying airburst. Brazenly rushed to the two. Under the impact, the ground began to crack continuously. Ryuichi's eyes looked at Yada, who was in a weird state. Thoughtful in his eyes, it seemed that he hadn't seen the terrifying impact in front of him. Chapter 185. Advertisement. Crook, don't use me as a tool, man. Gojo Satoru glanced at the horrifying shock that was constantly approaching. Glancing at his side, Ryuichi was startled. A palm stretched out randomly. Stretch between the palms. In midair, an invisible force burst out instantly. Click. Pung. The shock that seemed to penetrate everything fell into the air, as if blocked by an invisible barrier. It was like a big rock falling into the water, without the slightest splash. Slowly dissipated in the void. Did you take the initiative to change the direct form? That's right, if you don't change, it's too late. Ryuichi murmured softly. Indeed, with one knife in 2 days, any curse is facing the threat of dying. That is Miyamoto Musashi's curse for all cursed spirits in this world. Yada, who had been hit several times with a single knife in the second day, knew this truth even more deeply. Every time I was hit, it was quite like walking on the verge of death. So, this oldest cursed spirit chose to give up a life of his own initiative. Otherwise, if Ryuichi, who has been used for 2 days and one sword, really kills this life, then he had no chance to show his last posture. Only cursed spirit, who has rich combat experience, chose the best solution. An interesting plane, crazy struggle, dying collapse, and finally. Back to the light. What are you talking about? Gojo Satoru asked curiously. He didn't pay attention to the two extremely powerful cursed spirits opposite. In the eyes of Gojo Satoru, there is no enemy in this world that can survive his and Ryuichi teaming up. Don't say it is to remove the cursed spirit, even if the god is alive, he can cut off the head of the god with both of them. Nothing. Ryuichi smiled casually, shaking his hand with a knife in 2 days. Knife light aspect. Are you ready, Gojo? We have to face death. Ha ha ha. Death. Even if it's death, in front of us, we should obediently avoid it with our tail sandwiched. After all, we are the strongest. The strongest. Ryuichi rarely echoed a line that he had always thought was a second in two. Stand side by side with Gojo Satoru. Useless force under your feet. Base. Base. The two of them are like two lightning bolts, moving quickly through the space. Yada, shall we kill them all? The lie's expression became a bit stiff, he stretched out a palm and firmly held his neck. Advertisement. The maxilla behind him disappeared instantly. A stale air radiated from his body. Oh. A cloud of black air kept escaping from his facial features. Pouch. His body was like a deflated balloon, which continued to collapse. A humanoid creature whose whole body was shrouded in black air without any appearance appeared on the cursed island. A mouthful of white teeth was exposed, watching Ryuichi and Gojo rushing in quickly. There was a grinning smile. Pung. Rumble. Yada looked at the rushing Ryuichi and Gojo Satoru and waved his hands quickly. The countless air condensed with terrifying power and flew towards the two of them like bullets. Ryuichi's figure paused slightly, a knife in one hand and a pinch in the other. The strange door surging underfoot. Tai Chi, 4 images, and gossip all emerged. He got to slap Gojo Satoru's shoulder casually with his palm. As if Gojo Satoru had gotten some fun toy, a smile suddenly appeared at the corner of his mouth. Wandering. Base. A burst of blue appeared on the two of them. In the space, disappear out of thin air. Next moment. The two appeared directly in front of Yada. Ryuichi's eyes flashed. One knife in 2 days, swiped it homeopathically. The tyrannical sword Chizixia surged upwards. Go straight to Yada's head and wave it away. Pung. However, a black barrier suddenly emerged in the air. Actually blocked the slash of 2 days one knife. The sound of the handover of gold and stone. Don't ignore me, human. Lai he smiled, the black magic power in his hand like a quagmire continued to emerge. Disgusting. Not waiting for the lie's triumphant expression to converge. Gojo Satoru's slightly disgusting voice rang in his ears. When? I'll ask the question again in my next life, hey. Gojo Satoru jerked out of the void. With the thrust condensed to the extreme in his hand, it broke out in an instant. Directly on the lie's chest. Rumble. Pung. The tyrannical power instantly overwhelmed everything. Advertisement. Everything on the ground began to collapse. The horrible thrust, like a kitchen knife scraping a cake, left deep marks on the ground. An invisible, 10-meter-long huge pit appeared in the forest. The black air in front of Yada retreated suddenly. Ryuichi smiled at the corner of his mouth. The long knife in his hand swept across. Moment. The knife struck Yada's body directly. Base. One blow in 2 days, one blow is all slashed. But there was no joy on Ryuichi's face, but a trace of doubt. And Yada, who was slashed through the body by a knife in 2 days. But as if he was okay, he tilted his head and looked at Ryuichi. Hey, you are dying. Buzzing. This sentence seems to have some magical power. An invisible force of rules instantly blessed Ryuichi's body. Suddenly, Ryuichi seemed to perceive the malice of the whole world towards him. It feels like this world, Ryuichi is no longer allowed to exist. The air stopped flowing at the tip of Ryuichi's nose. Under the shining sun, Ryuichi's figure was avoided, and he fell into the darkness. It's like everything in this world is saying no to Ryuichi. Ryuichi was aware of this strange moment. Put your hands together quickly. Innately lead the weak, cover the change of the weak, and turn me into a king. The odd door game turned wildly again, isolating all the breath. Kill them all. A cloud of disgusting black water suddenly rose on the ground. The live figure appeared on the battlefield again. Ryuichi is the most powerful in this world. Ha ha ha. If you want to kill me, you can try. It's terrible jujutsu to be able to let a person be abandoned by the rules of this world. Self-contained. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Hululu. It owns jujutsu. Even Ryuichi had to admit it. Even if you don't have Feng Chi Men, it's hard to resist jujutsu that can guide the will of the world to kill the enemy. That strange feeling disappeared from Ryuichi's heart. By Yada's side, it slowly condensed and formed. P.S. The author can't stand it today, but there are 2 more changes. The body really can't stand it. I have to write as much as possible, brothers, understand. QVQ. Yada, this is known as the oldest cursed spirit. Yada, come on, let us kill them together. Chapter 186. Advertisement. Yada, come on, let us kill them together. Kill them all. A black lie, standing beside Yada, with a deep killing intent in his tone. He looked at Zenin Ryuichi in front of him. There seems to be a trace in the mouth, water drops. But, suddenly, the lie felt like a subtle change. Yada by his side, he stared at his eyes with an extremely disgusting look. Among the pair of black and white eyes, what revealed was endless hatred. What's the matter, Yada? Don't forget the eldest brother's instructions. Hey, Yada suddenly showed a strange little face. The mouth even opened, his cheeks alive. A mouthful of sharp fangs were exposed. Extremely sharp. A trace of bad feeling appeared in the lie's heart. Damn it, at this time, what is this guy going crazy? Ryuichi looked at the changes in front of him, thoughtfully, stepping lightly. The mind wandering started instantly. Back to Gojo's side. Looking at the 2 cursed spirits that have changed at this moment is like watching a big show that is about to be staged. Yada suddenly stretched out a palm to lie. The speed is so fast that neither Ryuichi nor Gojo Satoru can see it. Pouch. Yada's palm slammed into the lie's heart. What are you doing? Yada, are you crazy? Let go of me. Let go of me. Are you trying to violate the rules set by your eldest brother? Don't eat the same kind. Don't eat the same kind. Click, click. Lie let out a howl of pain, constantly trying to persuade Yada to let him go. But Yada now looks like a wayward child, completely ignoring lies. His other hand. Lift up again. Advertisement. He grabbed the side of the lie's body with a strange magnitude. There was a cruel smile in his eyes. Next moment. In the surprised eyes of Ryuichi and Gojo Satoru. Click. Zzz. The body of the lie was torn in half by Yada amidst his grief. Countless black blood spurted out, splashing everywhere. Then, an even more amazing scene appeared. Yada actually grabbed the body of the liar and stuffed it into his own mouth. He ate his own kind into his stomach, one bite after another. There was a bit of enjoyment on his face. He was like a kid who had succeeded in a prank and let out a low laugh. He. How many times have I said that I'm going to kill you? I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it. Right. I knew you couldn't think of it. Watching the scene in front of me, Ryuichi and Gojo face each other. For a while, I didn't know what to say. Cursed spirit was born in the human curse, but to some extent they are also human. At least so far. The Jujutsu world has not found any cursed spirit that feeds on the same kind. This scene is completely beyond the cognition of the 2. Till the end. This black hand who has planned for thousands of years in order to subvert the human world is pushing Ryuichi again and again. Never thought of it. He was actually killed by his companion. Even the body was swallowed in the abdomen. Death. There is never a lie. Lie Jujutsu is a fraud. He can deceive everything in the world, deceive the dead body into his own body, deceive human beings into his own followers, and deceive cursed spirit into ignorant fools. Even he can deceive himself. He has even forgotten what his original purpose was. But death can never be deceived. Finally Yan. Fuso, Tokyo Jujutsu Academy. Mei walked to Yaga Masamiki's office with a thick stack of documents in her hand. Advertisement. He looked at Yaga Masamiki, who had a giant body but was sewing cursed skeletons like a little woman. She knocked gently on the door. What's the matter, Mei? Yaga Masamiki asked curiously. Mei is a second-year student and rarely comes to her office on weekdays. And looking at this posture, something is clearly coming. Mei walked to the desk and put the papers on the desk. The pigtail on the front of his forehead shook slightly. There was a rare seriousness on his face. Ms. Yaga, I just found an incomplete record in the library file. Seeking flowers. The above record says that cursed spirit has the possibility of mutual cannibalization. I think the above statement is very reasonable, but the key point was torn off, and the organizer of this document is you, the teacher. So, can you tell me, what is the secret of this document in the end? Mei lay on the table, staring at Yaga Masamiki like a kitten. Yaga Masamiki sighed. Throw out the curse in his hand. The curse skeleton seemed to come alive in an instant. Run out to the door, and don't forget to close the door when you go out. Mei, I know your temperament, since you found me, even if I don't say it, you will not give up. It causes more trouble. ... 0. That was when I was young, and performed once with a senior to eliminate the task. Hearing this, Mei smiled innocently and said to Yaga Masamiki, Teacher, you really know me too well. Compared with the strict family competition system of Kyoto Academy. You also know that the second-level jujutsu teacher is absolutely suppressing the second-level cursed spirit, so I and the seniors passed with the mentality of just looking at it. Superior. Soil. However, something surprising happened. The cursed spirit, the weakest-looking one among the four, actually killed all his companions during the battle and ate it. It is true that in that battle, there were only 4 second-level cursed spirits in the building, but... Yaga Masamiki shook his head helplessly. A bit of reminiscence appeared in Yaga Masamiki's eyes. After a while, Yaga Masamiki continued. Yaga Masamiki seemed to remember some bad memory, clenching his fists with both hands, the veins swelled, and the teeth closed. Seeing this scene, Mei already had a surprising answer in her heart, but she did not say anything, but waited quietly. The talent-first Tokyo Academy seems to be a mixed bag, and all kinds of freaks emerge in an endless stream. I was still a third-level jujutsu division at the time, thinking it was just an ordinary removal operation. The senior is a second-level jujutsu division, and the strength is infinitely close to the first level, and the removal task we performed is only the second level. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. And, his spell power and jujutsu's level have also been transformed from level 2 directly into. Even his breathing became heavy. But, Chapter 187. Advertisement. What? When Mei heard this, she covered her mouth in surprise, and the second-level cursed spirit transformed to the super-level cursed spirit. This is simply impossible. Because it's like Master Jujutsu has mastered it. Cursed spirit was born in curse, and the cohesive curse strength is basically the only level of this cursed spirit. It's like the emotions born from the fear of the teacher of elementary school students, at most, the 4th-level cursed spirit. And out of mankind's fear of nature, and the fear of natural disasters, curse's words are well-deserved special grades. This kind of rule has been circulated in jujutsu circles for thousands of years. But, the meaning in the words of Yaga Masamiki at this moment is to say. The rules have been subverted. Cursed spirit can break this well-known rule. Yaga Masamiki let out a long sigh of relief. It seems that 460 was released because of the secrets that had been accumulated in his heart for many years. The whole person became a little relaxed, but the sad expression on his face really couldn't be faked anyway. Yes, you heard it right. From the second level to the special level, that monster almost completes the transformation in an instant before my eyes. The consequence is that senior alone dragged the special class and asked me to seek assistance. 4th level jujutsu master can't help in that situation except to get in the way. But when the assistance came, senior was already given by that guy. Yaga Masamiki's expression became even sadder. Even if he doesn't say the rest. Mei also knew everything in her heart. The second-level jujutsu teacher can't resist the special-level cursed spirit at all. That battle was a well-deserved killing. Later, I looked through a lot of materials and documents, and finally let me find the secret of cursed spirit mutual feeding in an ancient book. Curse was born cursed spirit, and these creatures, when they are not wise, their brains should have only one idea, that is to fill their stomachs and think about the survival instinct of animals. In our opinion, cursed spirit was born from human beings. Does it have emotions, souls, nature and humans? But don't forget, in the final analysis, the essence of cursed spirit is nature. The nature of survival. In the era when Jujutsu was just born, the cursed spirit swallowed each other, and it was far more tragic than human beings. Different phases represent weakness and restraint, but once the cursed spirit swallows the same kind who is opposed to his own phase, it means that he has swallowed his own weaknesses. In other words, to fill the vacancy on curse. Heard this. Mei seemed to be struck by lightning. Cursed spirit's curse is different, fills in weaknesses, and promotes. Advertisement. Simply put, the roots of curse are different. There are employees who exploit curse, and there are bosses who treat employees as lazy curse. The birth of the two is completely opposed, which inevitably leads to a total opposition between jujutsu. But once one of them swallows the other, Then curse will change. From exploitation and laziness, this one-way simple curse has transformed into a larger and more complicated curse for labor relations. The natural beauty of cursed spirit will rise. Master Jujutsu does not die without regret. Yaga Masamiki opened the curtain behind him and looked at the slowly setting sun, as if he saw the one that was torn in two, but he tried his best not to let himself grow resentment. Don't let yourself be part of the birth of curse, the respectable predecessor. Teacher. Mei slammed the table and pulled Yaga Masamiki back to reality. Since devouring is a condition for cursed spirit to advance, why has it been a long time since the modern cursed spirit has such a situation? Cursed spirits with different phases are not uncommon on some occasions. What Mei said is not wrong. In school, workplace, and even the police station. It is very common for cursed spirits to appear in opposition to each other. However, there has never been a devouring event that Yaga Masamiki said. Because Yaga Masamiki's voice became a bit solemn and a bit weird. I suspect that there is a cursed spirit that controls everything. The rule that he will prohibit cannibalism is engraved in the roots of every curse. Only a small part of curse can escape his control. The king of cursed spirit who rules everything. Mei glanced at Yaga Masamiki suspiciously. This kind of thing is simply ridiculous. Cursed spirit, as the representation of human curse, is a pure person. It is almost difficult for the ruling class to build on these guys. Unless the most original curse of mankind. What is that? Mei stood up excitedly. She suddenly thought of that legend, that curse, which was born when all human beings were at its root, was the eternal and immortal existence in that legend. No words are circulated, only scattered messages prove that this legend once existed. Don't talk about its shape, name, or peek into its body. This is the only motto about that existence. Advertisement. I don't know, but apart from this hypothesis, there is no other way to explain why the cursed spirit eclipse is forbidden. Hearing Yaga Masamiki did not know what the legendary existence was. Mei was a bit disappointed. Sit down again. Then it was as if something had suddenly occurred to him. If the special class swallows the special class, what will happen? Yaga Masamiki, who heard this question, gently tapped the table with his fingers a few times. After a long while, he said in a deep voice, swallowing is to complement one's own curse, from small categories to large categories. And the super curse has been infinitely close to perfection, then the consequences after they eat each other. Perfect. Will be born, facing the original perfect curse. Beyond the super existence. To bury the world and destroy everything to the ruins. This feeling is a coercion that has never appeared before. Naturally, all sounds are constantly nourishing Yada's body. Yada in front of him seemed to be out of the category of cursed spirit. God. All felt a kind of pressure. And the death that can contain everything is called Guishu. While the curse power emerged, although it was still evil, it seemed to have been approved by a certain rule. He stood in the midst of this world, as if being sheltered. Even Zenin Ryuichi and Gojo Satoru. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. That is on the Jujutsu Shiji. The fall of life is called death. God. Now you should respect me as a god. Death is a journey without lies. Ha ha ha. Yada laughed wildly. Chapter 188. Advertisement. This guy's current curse power is not as simple as that of a super class. Gojo Satoru's face was rarely gloomy. Even with his strength, he had a bad feeling at this moment. It was like the guy in front of him who had swallowed his partner. A certain qualitative change was completed in an instant. The curse power of the whole body is not revealed at all, but it exudes a kind of potential all the time. That is a kind of invincible potential. It was as if Yada was standing there at the moment, he was the master of this world. Everything is based on his code of conduct as the standard. And his standard is, die. Zenin Ryuichi also looked at Yada in front of him, and felt a tremendous pressure that had never appeared before. This guy's current strength has reached an incomprehensible level, but what I didn't expect is that the mutual swallowing of cursed spirits can actually bring such a huge improvement to each other. The two stood side by side. The tyrannical curse is constantly radiating. And Ryuichi's eyes suddenly shrank. Because 23. Ryuichi, who controls Feng Chi Men, has a tyrannical perception of everything outside. So he noticed it. Now, the ground on which Yada stood was actually slowly losing its vitality. That is a force that pulls everything into death. Far beyond all the power that can be understood. Gojo Satoru and Ryuichi glanced at each other. They all saw the shock in the other's eyes. Ha 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 ha. Finally eaten him. This idiot, who listened to his elder brother so much now, should have eaten him a long time ago. Yada's voice got closer to the child. The old face also seemed to go back in time. Constantly became a small doll like a powder-carved yuch. Staring at a pair of shui ling-lingdi eyes, let out a crazy laugh. Idiot, idiot, idiot. He scolded a few viciously in a childish voice. Then the thief looked at Zenin Ryuichi dimly, his black and white eyes spooky turning a few times. Advertisement. Zenin Ryuichi. If it wasn't for you and this guy to push the idiot Yada to this level, I don't know how long I will be trapped. He. After all, he didn't seem to be in a hurry to attack the two. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the ground. Click. A huge throne rose from the ground like a submissive pet. Drag the little Yada on it. Aren't you Yada? In Ryuichi's palm, a black light floated slowly and quietly fell into his shadow. Hey. Yada. No. Humans, don't make a mistake, okay, the name is just a boring proof that you humans set to show your existence. Only Yada. Lies, these boring and weak guys will want to prove their existence with that kind of thing. The Black Hand who lied about the world for thousands of years was the driving force behind the tragedy of the Gojo and Zenin families thousands of years ago. Yada, the oldest cursed spirit, the guide of suicide, the witness of the world. With such tyrannical two cursed spirits, even Ryuichi has admitted the power of these two guys in his heart. But, in the mouth of this little Yada who has become a child, the two have become so small and sad. Then I'm curious, you are not Yada, who would you be? Gojo Satoru asked too. Little Yada scratched her chin, acting a bit like a newborn baby cat. The Quartet of Death is the power that Yada paid at the cost of the domain, just like the countdown to his death. Then you think, whose power do you like to sacrifice? Little Yada looked at the two playfully, with a high tone. The root of suicide, death. You are a fear born from death, but it's wrong, how can you hide in his body? Gojo Satoru blurted out like he had thought of something. At the same time, Zenin Ryuichi, who was beside him, thought of this, frowning slightly. No, Yada itself is death, but he deceived himself. Zenin Ryuichi said categorically. Not bad. As soon as his voice fell, little Yada snapped his fingers, looked forward at Zenin Ryuichi, and said with some appreciation. Unexpectedly, you can actually think of this, you deserve to be a man who can draw a knife in 2 days. That's right, Ryuichi could hear something unusual in the tone of the little Yada's words just now. That kind of contempt for oneself comes from the soul, and if it were human beings, there might still be split personality. But cursed spirit itself is a single extreme. Advertisement. This will never happen, Ryuichi will contact Yada once again. I am curse-born in the earliest human fear of self-destruction. I have witnessed the whole journey of mankind. But there is a huge loophole in this sentence. That is time. Yada claims to have read all over the history of mankind, but human emotions can only breed negative emotions after they become more intelligent. At that time, human beings will never be born with a single fear that arises from suicide. Because of their extremely simple wisdom at that time. Only life and death. There is no concept of suicide and homicide. Death is death. Therefore, Yada is not the so-called self-destruction at all, but death itself. Born among the earliest wise humans, one of the deepest curse. Die. As a reward, it separates my external and internal curse, so that I have been looking at me for so many years. This idiot can't even control his own power. I give you all to wait. The supreme glory. Then there is only one possibility. However, I really want to thank you. The pressure on him in the second day of a knife was too great, which caused my external appearance to collapse completely. Only then did I get out of the shackles again. After eating that lie and that idiot, all my memories have come back. NS. Distributed Yada's power into the so-called quartet. The so-called quartet and the countdown to death. It is the king of fraud, who was born in the lies of human beings, who can even deceive himself, lies. And that old Yada was just a body covered with a veil. Ha. That's right. That B************* D is actually casting jujutsu on me while I'm asleep. But Yada didn't have to deceive himself, so he really believed that he was curse-born in self-destruction. Death add body. Deceived Yada. Chapter 189. Advertisement. Rumble. Click. The moment Yada's voice fell, the ground began to crack quickly. A strange power completely different from any previous curse power began to explode. The breath of horror flooded everything like a sea wave. It was a silent death. It's a kind of weird thing that clearly exists in front of you, but you can clearly feel that he has passed away. Base. The figures of Ryuichi and Gojo Satoru jumped up quickly. Under the blessing of power, it stands out of thin air. Looking at everything on the ground that was deprived of the invisible death, there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. But soon, there was a smile on their faces unexpectedly. It seems that it's finally a bit of fun. Gojo Satoru said softly, the curse power under his body was constantly boiling, and the infinite speed in front of him was superimposed together. On his pair of heavenly eyes, there were bursts of silver light, like this universe, the stars and the sea are all in his eyes. Be careful, Ryuichi glanced, and Gojo Satoru, who had completely ignited his fighting spirit next to him, said something like a reminder, but the next moment the wind changed. The tone changed suddenly. Be careful, don't be left behind by me. Before he could say anything, there was a trace of solemnity on Ryuichi's face. The figure rushed towards the little Yada in the air. Cut. You are the one. Gojo Satoru curled his mouth casually, exerting force under his feet in vain, and ripples suddenly appeared in the space. Two completely different lights and shadows, black and white, madly slammed the little Yada on the throne. The tyrannical force rendered the sky black. The black thunder exploded crazily in the air, as if to annihilate all of this. Little Yada didn't even look at it. Ryuichi and Gojo Satoru glanced at it. Said self-consciously. Why can't human beings understand the greatness of death? Everything you do from birth to death is a meaningless struggle in itself. Birth, adulthood, marrying a wife, continuation of offspring, death, you are just repeating this tedious process infinitely. Since the end of everything is death, then why can't you enjoy the glory that came in advance? Pung. A violent explosion broke the little Yada's self-talk. I saw Gojo Satoru in midair, with his hands spread out, two extremely powerful shocks, breaking through layers of space. Advertisement. Blatantly rushed to Yada, but an invisible force instantly condensed in midair, and he, which was powerful enough to match the missile, only made a faint sound, and disappeared into the invisible. Is it infinite? No, it was the space that was killed at that moment, so he will be annihilated with the dead space. Gojo Satoru's six eyes gave him a glimpse of the truth in an instant. I couldn't help but feel tight. What kind of monster is it that can pull the space flesh into death? Such power. Is there really a god in this world? Just when Gojo Satoru was slightly confused, Ryuichi's figure instantly rushed past him like a meteor. The figure is constantly flashing in the air, and the whole space becomes Ryuichi's home court at the moment when the mind is activated. Ryuichi looked at Yada with electric eyes. He already has a certain number in his mind as to how Gojo's attack was resolved. Things that can even conceptualize words in space can pull them into death in an instant. The scope of this power is too broad, and it doesn't conform to the rules of this world at all. In this world, everything is observing a principle. Get and lose. This is equivalent to the establishment of bondage. Except for the odd number Ryuichi and the freak Gojo Satoru. Everyone in this world must abide by this principle. Power comes at a price, if Jujutsu of Yada can drag everything to death. So what is the price he has to pay? Ryuichi's brain is running fast. But the body did rush towards Yada non-stop. Yada seems to have noticed Ryuichi. I can pull a small piece of space into death, and everything in that space will fall into death along with the space being killed. However, Zenin Ryuichi, actually like an unknown prophet, can take a step on his own and use a special ability to cross the space. Even now this death incarnation could not help but appear a little surprised. He slowly raised a finger. A ray of light condensed between his fingers. Buzzing. Pung. The invisible shock broke out again, as if to drown everything. In an instant. Advertisement. The sky fell to the end of the abyss. It was like a terrifying behemoth opened its mouth full of slime, roaring to swallow the heavens. Ryuichi looked at the weird power that was constantly killing in front of him, and quickly pinched the trick with one hand. In the moon-white eyes, the bloody moon burst into existence, killing and rippling. Diaresis dry word Tien Shao. Buzzing. A force that does not exist in this world slowly surging from the strange door, like a layer of liquid, forming an extremely shallow cyan protective layer on the outside of Ryuichi's body. The odd door game. Control the world, do it for the sky has evil stars, immortality, self-denial and self-denial. Ryuichi drew the power of the evil spirit into him at this moment. In an instant, the feeling of losing his life at any time disappeared in his heart. It's done. Ryuichi was overjoyed. He was thinking just now, will death be brought into the ruins, that is, the end of this world. But, what if he doesn't exist anymore? Cheating death. After Yada swallowed the lie, the rules of death became more perfect. The act of cheating the death rules is almost difficult to achieve. Ordinary Jujutsu division, facing Yada, who can kill even space, is even more helpless to fight back. But Ryuichi is different. He can use Feng Hu Chi Men to pull the Qian Ziju makings to let the evil spirit on the sky fall. A thin film formed on his body. This is a method that no one else in this world can do. The gods will not stay in the ruins. That is to say, the power of the gods will not leave it even if it is death. Therefore, at this moment, Ryuichi can already ignore Yada's Jujutsu rules by using the power of the gods. Buzzing. Feeling the terrifying power of death, stroked across his body, as if it were a breeze, it was harmless. A smile appeared at the corner of Ryuichi's mouth. At this moment, even in the face of death, it's a god. He has also entered. Invincible. Next, I will perform on the stage. Chapter 190. Advertisement. The endless force of death completely enveloped the entire sky, and the terrifying aura completely wrapped the cursed island everywhere. Under this power, it seems that everything in this world will fall into eternal sleep for it. And in that invisible death, Zenin Ryuichi's figure is standing at the center of it all. It's like the unchanging heavens. Standing in the air. Arrogant Lingyun. Around him, the power of the evil spirits wrapped him in layers. The power that makes everything in the world fall into death can only be like a breeze too when facing the gods. Cannot cause any harm. Click. The corner of Ryuichi's mouth brought a chuckle, and the gossip under his feet turned. A mysterious and abnormal power constantly surged. Base. His figure was in the midst of death, flying out like a fish in the sea. Yada looked at the scene in the sky. A shock suddenly appeared in his eyes. What? To be able to advance wantonly under my return to the ruins, what is the origin of this Zenin Ryuichi? Even the heir of that old guy can never do this, damn it. Can't let him get close anymore. Yada's heart slammed, and a fierceness appeared in his eyes. Boom. He stood up directly from the throne. He quickly stretched out a palm, and a horrible breath quickly appeared in front of him. Cuckoo, cuckoo. The air made a sound like boiling water. Return to the market surge. Hum. He gave a sharp wave of his palm. The weird power swiftly passed through the air. Buzzing. Cuckoo. Where that power passes, the space is like boiling water, constantly showing weird bubbles. The endless space bubbles continue to flock to Ryuichi. But, in the face of such a weird power, Ryuichi couldn't avoid it. His eyes narrowed slightly. Make your toes a little empty and pinch with one hand. Do easy function wing. Hum. Click. Advertisement. A burst of cyan power was on Ryuichi's back out of thin air. Hooked together quickly, slowly forming a pair of cyan wings. Base. Ryuichi's speed changed a bit faster at the moment that wing appeared. That speed even surpasses space travel. Facing the bubble group that can detonate the void with a slight explosion. Ryuichi rushed directly in. Shocking. He is like an eagle flying in the sky. The densely packed and almost seamless bubbles didn't even have a corner that could be touched. What is the price? Ryuichi walked through the terrifying space bubble, watching Yada, who was constantly becoming a little panicked as he approached. Ryuichi seemed to suddenly realize. There was a slight chuckle at the corner of his mouth. The figure of the god was reflected in the moon-white eyes. Found it. Your price. A few unnoticeable panic flashes across Yada's face. This guy who just looked like a god. At this moment, there was a hint of panic in my heart. What kind of monster is this guy? He must be restricted. Must. It seemed impossible to stop Ryuichi from approaching. Yada's eyes quickly fixed on Gojo Satoru, who was behind Ryuichi, who was resisting death with infinite power. There was a sly smile at the corner of his mouth. His palm stirred in the direction of Gojo Satoru. Moment. The huge bubble group began to rush towards Gojo Satoru. The space kept twisting and bursting under that power, and then healed again. It's like reincarnation and there is no sound. Zenin Ryuichi. You and his friends. Although I don't know what your weird power is, but if you don't save him, he will die. Yada felt that the reason why Ryuichi was able to ignore his death and rush directly into it. It must be caused by the gray power in him that made him feel a little palpitating. He had a faint hunch. That kind of power is one's own nemesis. Therefore, the precipitation of the years has made this seemingly only a few years old cursed spirit, who has long since surpassed the cunning of human beings. In order not to let Ryuichi get close to him, he chose to lean his power on Gojo Satoru, who is not protected by the power of the gods. Humans are the best to deal with. Partners, friendship, these things are weaknesses. Guru, cuckoo. The space bubbles covering the sky and the earth seemed to annihilate everything, and they slowly floated in front of Gojo Satoru. Feel the power in front of you. Gojo Satoru's is not tightly wrinkled, it is infinitely constructed, and it is too difficult to form in space bubbles. It is difficult for atoms to condense under this degree of dryness. Advertisement. Unable to complete unlimited builds. Countless bubbles slowly surrounded Gojo Satoru. Seems to be waiting for some signal. Ha ha ha. Go save him. Go save your friends. Yada let out a sinister laugh with a shrill childish voice. But, Ryuichi's speed didn't seem to decrease, and he rushed straight to kill Yada above the throne. It was as if he hadn't heard Yada's words. Under the blessing of Function Wing. Ryuichi will arrive in front of Yada almost immediately. There was a trace of contempt at the corner of his mouth. As if in front of the sarcasm, this cowardly god. Friend, please, you were wrong, my friend, but. It's very strong. Base. Ryuichi turned into a streamer and instantly appeared above Yada's throne. Killing intent filled his eyes. And Yada was furious. Then he glanced at Ryuichi violently. With a grinning smile, he stretched out a palm and squeezed it violently. Click. Cuckoo. A large number of space bubbles began to be distorted continuously. Rumble. Pung. Pipe. Bang bang. In the tyrannical explosion. The entire area seemed to enter a certain terrible state of chaos 1. In the continuous space bombing, the space that could not be healed formed a large number of black areas. Ha ha ha. Since you don't care, let him go to the market first. Yada looked at Ryuichi in the sky, expecting to see the fear of human beings when their best friend died. But, when he looked at Ryuichi again, he shrank suddenly. Because he saw it. Zenin Ryuichi looked at the bombed area with a bit of helplessness like being mischievous. How long are you going to play, Gojo? Hum. A white light that was enough to redefine the world exploded, and that area was completely smoothed and erased in an instant. Oh, can't you care about me? Gojo Satoru's frivolous voice slowly sounded. What kind of monsters are these two guys? The power of this kid is nothingness. How could it be possible? Impossible. The nothingness has long since disappeared with the slumber of those imaginary cursed spirits. At this moment, this lofty god has an inexplicable look called despair in his eyes. Chapter 191. Advertisement. What kind of monsters are these two guys? The power of this kid is nothingness. How could it be possible? Impossible. The nothingness has long since disappeared with the slumber of those imaginary cursed spirits. At this moment, Yada's heart was almost collapsed, and he had just awakened from a long sleep, finally regaining control of this body. But now, everything in front of him was like a big joke made by the mobile phone god. A monster who holds a sword for 2 days in his hand, has the opportunity to kill himself with a single sword, and can ignore death. The other is the unlimited spell user who masters the power of nothingness. This made Yada, who was still like a god 10 minutes ago, felt a trance. This time you are slow, Gojo. Ryuichi looked at Gojo Satoru and said something meaningful. An extremely deep darkness flashed in his eyes. Your price is the body. The price of obtaining that almost invincible jujutsu is the infinite weakening of physical power. While speaking, Ryuichi stared at Yada's expression closely. Although the opponent's face did not show the slightest fluctuation. However, Ryuichi, who had almost anticipatory intuition, still noticed the panic that flashed across Yada. Although it was only a moment, it was enough. Hey, Ryuichi, you guys want to eat alone? Gojo Satoru's body, the power that transcends the construction of reality slowly flows. He has never felt so much at this moment good. Even if it was Yada, he was confident and completely eliminated it. But, when Ryuichi appeared on Yada's head, Gojo had a hunch that his friend would eat single food. Sorry, Gojo, who made you this time? It's slow. The conversation between the two almost caused Yada's anger to rush all the way from the heel to the Tianling guy. When Tang Tang got the master of the ruins, the incarnation of death, one of the deepest nightmares of mankind, become the prey that two hairy boys need to fight for. His eyes were burning with anger, and the power of death on his hands continued to crumble. Domain expansion, the dead world of Yindu. A cold voice rang in Yada's ear. Countless exhaustive darkness has become the main color of this world. Death, loneliness, this is the only feeling Yada has when he enters the realm, because of his awareness. In this realm developed by Ryuichi, there is not the slightest life. Advertisement. Even the space is death. Haha, Zenin Ryuichi, it's your biggest failure to bring me closer to the field. A smile appeared on Yada's face. As if some kind of conspiracy succeeded. From the moment Ryuichi was able to ignore his death, he had already figured out whether Ryuichi was in the realm of expansion. As long as Ryuichi wants to capture him into the field, he still has a chance. There is no domain, which is one of the prices I paid, but the other power I gained is plunder. As long as there is my existence in the realm, then this realm will turn into the ruins. Turn into the end of everything. And I am the lord of the ruins. Yada's arms spread out, as if embracing the sky. A burst of mysterious curse power emerged on his body. Want to try to swallow everything. Click. Cuckoo. The power like a black mist continued to manifest in his body. Ryuichi floated above the domain, looking condescendingly at Yada on the ground who wanted to seize control of his domain. There was a contemptuous smile at the corner of his mouth. A round of scarlet moon hung high in this area. In this pure darkness, the blood light seemed so faint. Ignorance. He spit out 2 words lightly. His tone was indifferent, as if he was commenting on an ant trying to shake the mountain. At this moment, the identities of the two have been reversed. Zenin Ryuichi looked down at Yada on the ground like a god. Pung. Click. A sound of annihilation sounded, and the black aura on Yada's body collapsed, as if being swallowed by some kind of higher regular power, except for the ordinary. Why? My plunder should be invincible. Any realm should become Guishu in front of me. Yada was completely stupid now, his whole cards actually didn't play any role directly. You know, this trick was thousands of years ago, and he didn't know how many powerful jujutsu masters were killed. Hehe. Ryuichi looked at Yada panicked and sneered. Snapped. He snapped his fingers crisply. Seeking flowers. The space began to be distorted, and cursed spirits appeared one by one behind him. Advertisement. White clothes and black hair, full of blood, super imaginary cursed spirit temptress. Impermanence ecstasy, ghost desperate for life, special effects imaginary cursed spirit black and white impermanence. The yellow sand is all over the sky, the corpses are all over the field, and the incomplete super cursed spirit Yaki Orochi. Befriend me, give you eternal life, special desire cursed spirit befriend God. 4 superb cursed spirits appeared behind Ryuichi like servants, half kneeling. Like godly. Temple. Befriended. Yaki. You guy. What do you want to do? A terrible thought appeared in Yada's mind. What are you doing? Ryuichi rubbed his chin, and the cursed spirit behind him turned into a curse and poured into his body. In an instant, his breath became extremely treacherous. Base. Under the blood moon, the black mist filled. Next moment, Ryuichi had already appeared in front of Yada, and a big hand grabbed the god's neck directly. It's like catching a little chicken, tightly squeezed in his hand. Exactly as he had guessed. The price of Jujutsu who can kill all beauty must be very serious. The physical strength of Yada is almost equal to the physical strength of a 7-year-old boy. Dot 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 dot. A trace of pure darkness began to continuously appear in Yada's eyes. Gu Ling. Burst. P.S. Do you want to watch the original plot, or are you ready to pick up comics now? The strength of the spirits is pervasive, frantically flooding into the gap. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. You could have been complete until you lied. Hearing this, Ryuichi showed a weird smile. A faint cracking sound rang in Yada's heart, which also made him plunge into the Dead Sea. Don't think about it. I saw your jujutsu just now. My curse is very complete. It's impossible to control me. The curiously black aura instantly poured into Yada's body. In Ryuichi's hands, Yada didn't even have the slightest room to struggle. Click. Buzzing. Above his curse roots, the curse fragment that absorbed the power of the lie was suddenly destroyed by a piece of black air. Of course I am. Let you see your future colleagues first. There is no resistance in Ryuichi's hands.